Welcome to the Lambton College International Graduate Services and Support Center, your dedicated resource for navigating life after graduation. We know the journey can be complex, from understanding immigration processes to making career decisions and expanding your professional network. That's why we're here, to simplify these challenges and support your transition into Canadian life. At the International Graduate Services and Support Center, our mission extends beyond your academic achievements. We are here to facilitate your successful integration into the Canadian workforce and society. From career counseling to workshops on Canadian workplace culture and immigration support, our services are tailored to meet the unique needs of international graduates. We're committed to empowering you with the tools and knowledge necessary for success. Embrace the opportunity to connect with fellow graduates and professionals through our networking events and stay informed with our comprehensive webinars covering a range of topics crucial for your postgraduate success. Remember, the path to achieving your aspirations is a journey we undertake together. Ready to take the next step? Visit our website and join our supportive community. Remember to follow us on Instagram and on LinkedIn for upcoming immigration webinars, networking events, and much more. Together, let's make your postgraduate journey a success.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Cristina Yeguren, and I'm the coordinator of the International Graduate Services and Support Center. I want to remind you that we are recording this webinar so that you can watch it later again on our YouTube channel, and we're also going to get a recording shortly. I want to invite you as well to follow us on our social media accounts, where you're going to get the latest information about the center. We're going to have a very interesting and exciting networking event this April 29th, especially for our science and technology graduates. So if you belong to any of our groups of technology and science graduates, please do check your email. We have sent you already the invitation. Be mindful that the spots are limited, so you need to act fast and register as soon as possible. It's going to be a great event because we're going to have an immigration consultant talking about how you can get your PR if you have studied one of those programs. We're going to have a hiring manager as well and some more surprises. So please register as soon as possible. Check your emails. Remember, our science and technology graduates, we want to see you there on April 29. As you know, the center is dedicated to assisting you as you seek employment and settle into Canadian life following graduation. Our international graduates have access to immigration, career advice, and networking events. Also, there are countless reasons why you can take pride in being a Lambton graduate, as I'm also very proud of working here. We've been ranked as one of Canada's top research colleges, and we're here to support you all the way, even after graduation. Today, we have an amazing guest with us. He's our new consultant. His name is Rod Chalmers. Rod is original from here, from Toronto. He's Canadian, and he has traveled all over Canada and internationally. He has a wide range of knowledge thanks to his background in psychology from McMaster University in Hamilton. He's also a business owner, and he has been teaching English for a long time to students all over the globe, and also he is a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. So today we're going to talk with him about the REDI program, and he's also going to give us very important CELPIP pro tips if you want to succeed, or probably you have already taken the CELPIP, but you just want to get a higher score. So this is going to be an amazing session for you. Thank you so much, Rod, and to our graduates for participating in this session today. I'll pass it to you now. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that lovely introduction, and thanks for having me and inviting me. If there is anything that you remember from our session this morning that stands out to you, then by all means, jump in and remind me, because these are not scripted. They're done live, and the conversation can go in a couple of different directions. So
Perfect.
let's see what I can do here. I've got a little bit of lag happening at my side, but let's see what we can do.
I just want to remind you to type your questions in the Q&A, and we will go through your questions after Rod's intervention.
An intervention sounds so formal. Sounds like I'm stopping people from taking deadly drugs or something. We're having an intervention. You need to go to rehab. Uh, this
We
is
need an
the
intervention, how to create our profiles, how to succeed in
exactly.
immigration. So please go ahead.
We need to intervene with the government's ridiculous policies that change every 5 minutes. It's a hard world to keep up with, and I applaud you all for dealing with being an international student and being away from family and friends and food and music and your pillow and your pets, and coming here and then being subjected to frustrated Canadians because temporary residents are being blamed for things that they shouldn't be blamed for because they were invited, and it's just the whole thing is just a bit of a disaster. The fact remains that you are here, and Canada wants permanent residents, and there are pathways that are available. The pathways do change frequently. Our Minister of Immigration, Sean Fraser, a number of years ago, many months ago, it was obviously he was prior to two people now. He said that the immigration system is a lot like pipes and taps, and there's constant adjustments going on. There's a refugee situation. There's a crisis in some part of the world. There could be a humanitarian crisis or an increase in humanitarian and compassionate relief cases for perhaps the United States, where all of a sudden people who once were welcomed are no longer welcomed. And if you're not welcomed, you might get shipped off to some jail in El Salvador. So, what happens here is I get to talking about the United States, then my brain goes all frazzy. Let's get into our topic here. If you'd like to ask questions about immigration, by all means, and I'd like to remind you that there are a lot of people who are claiming to be immigration consultants, or they'll call themselves an agent. It is a protected title. And the reason the government has made it a protected title is because the public needs to know that if they go to somebody who calls themselves an immigration consultant, that they are duly licensed, which means they are duly educated, insured, they're a member of the college in good standing, they do continuing professional development education, and maintain a broad knowledge of the changes in the legislation that occur. A lot of people go through a program, then feel that they're an expert on that program, and then provide advice to other people for money without knowing the nuances of particular legislation. And the fear, of course, is that if you mess up somebody's immigration file, there is a possibility that they get sent back to a country where they get hurt or worse, killed. So those of us who are trained appropriately take that very seriously and recognize that there are some serious consequences. And I think a lot of the people who are acting fraudulently in the field don't care because they don't have to deal with those consequences. So much like if you were to take your car to an unlicensed mechanic, if they wreck your car, there's not a whole lot the government can help you with because you chose to go to an unlicensed mechanic. I started CELPIP training 2020. It was right in around the pandemic. Started English teaching in 2015. And my mom was an English teacher. In fact, she immigrated from England and was quite particular about our Queen's English, now the King's English, I suppose. Everybody in our family is a communicator as a result, because from the time we were babies, we were talked to about grammar and vocabulary and structure and, not in a bad way, but just, how to be an interesting communicator, how to tell stories, how to recant or retell information that you've learned from somewhere else, how to paraphrase things appropriately. So I grew up with a lot of this. My brother's a radio announcer. My other brother is a wine educator in British Columbia. I've been teaching my entire adult life. Started with healthcare, teaching emergency first responders and emergency medical responders with the Canadian Red Cross, and then went into English because the pandemic. Well, it was prior to the pandemic, but I knew that I had done the healthcare thing for a long, long time. And then when the pandemic hit, and I had already been teaching for 5 years, it was very easy to transition to going online. So now I specialize in doing online programs for people who are really anywhere in the world, so long as they have an internet connection. I am affiliated with CELPIP, so my name is on their website, and I think I have my results coming up a little bit later for you because I had to do the test as well to be an immigration consultant. I also teach business communications at Sheridan College. We won't go into that in too much depth because you're Lambton College, but we are all public colleges, and that's the key, is that you chose, or somebody chose for you, and you wisely listened to go to a public instead of a private institution. Canada does not really respect private education at the post-secondary level. At the high school level, we've got some very old 1800s established amazing private high schools. The concept of private colleges and universities is fairly new in Canada, and if you ask any Canadian-born, doesn't have to be a student, but anybody who's familiar with the school system, shoot around a few names like Lambton, Seneca, George Brown, Centennial, Mohawk. These are all known names. You start talking about, Ontario Community Professional College. I mean, who are those guys? There's all sorts of people calling themselves colleges, and they are designated learning institutions, but you would never catch a Canadian in any of those places. A few of them focus on medical and healthcare. That's getting a little bit more professional. There we start to see a few Canadians, but for the most part, these, especially private universities, I think there's one called Niagara Falls University and University Canada West, not respected, and nobody is going to know or recognize that piece of paper. So there's my contact information if you would like, my email address, website, my license number, of course. McMaster University was great. I really enjoyed it. I did all my schooling here in Ontario, and went to McMaster as an adult student a few years after I probably should have. I think I went to university at about 26. Loved it. Chose psychology, did psychology and sociology, study of people in groups and as individuals. CELPIP instructor training certificate, so they do have a program officially, so I went through all three levels of their training, and because I've been training for so long, it was very second nature. On the right we have Cambridge. Cambridge is the IELTS people, so it was the IELTS people that originally did my teacher training. There's a little shout out to Sheridan and public colleges in general, and there's the college, in this case not a college like Sheridan or Lambton, but a regulatory college, so like the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario, the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants, the College of Nurses of Ontario. So these colleges are responsible to just make sure that the members of the college are keeping up to date with their knowledge, their bookkeeping, their knowledge of rules, professional development, ethics, bylaws that maintain civility and professionalism in the industry. So important organization. There's my CELPIP score. So I did okay. Thankfully, with Mom as an English teacher, I would have been very upset with myself if I had not scored this. And as a result of it being so important to me, I studied. And when I tell people I studied, they're surprised. They say, well, but dude, what? People come to you for help with their English. Why are you? And I said, I'm not studying the language. I'm studying what the expectations are of the test. What do these examiners want? What are they looking for? Because if I spend, first of all, it's like $300 to take the test. $280 plus tax, it might be $3 and change. Why would I not take 2 hours to go through the CELPIP website to find the rubrics, like the charts that the examiners use to score you? Like, what a great tool for you to have is to have their checklist, because now you know exactly what they're looking for. So now, as you are training yourself, or you've come to a preparation course, or you're um, recording yourself and then playing it back and giving yourself a critique, uh, what you're listening for are meeting those check boxes that are on the checklist or on the rubric, on the scoring chart. So all of that stuff is available to you. So that's the stuff that I read. What do they want? How do they want it? How fast? How formal? Should it change? Should it be the same all the way through the test in terms of level of formality? Which, by the way, it shouldn't be, right? They want to see you shift gears between talking to your boss, talking to uh, somebody on the phone about your car has broken down, talking to your family member, talking to a friend. All of these things have slightly different attitudes that go along with them. And the examiners look for that sort of thing. So it's not just vocabulary and grammar, but it's about meaning and emotion and thoughtfulness. Can you think in English as opposed to regurgitating a scripted template that somebody online said, use this and you'll do well? Because the examiners know. Okay, my personal friends are examiners. Okay, so I know that they get emailed a batch of MP3s as speaking examiners, and they don't know who you are. They don't have a name. They don't have a. You're just a number. They don't know what you look like. They don't know where you're from. They just sit and they listen, and they go through this rubric of the things that I was just talking about: clarity and diction and intonation and enunciation and pronunciation, and these things that all have slightly different meanings that if you read about, you will understand. And if you understand, you'll be able to appropriately, mm, I want to use the word attack, but appropriately uh, deal with or appropriately approach a certain task because you know what they're looking for. So there are native speakers, native English speakers who don't do well because they think that I already speak English and therefore I don't need to. And they end up with 9s and 10s and they don't understand why. So a few updates. I know that primarily we are speaking about the REDI program because the REDI is a new program. It is, however, not an overly big program. So we'll get into it a little bit in the next couple of slides, and I'll let you know where these neighborhoods or communities are. But as a quick review of some things that have happened, the spousal open work permit is no longer open to dependent children. It is still open to spouses, of course, but the primary applicant has to have 16 months of work permit time left uh, in order for their spouse to be eligible. So if somebody receives a 1-year PGWP, their spouse is not coming. Not to work anyway, maybe to visit. In terms of having strong ties to the country, this is one of the problems with having a spouse and the children come over because it really makes it more of a comfortable, permanent move. Hey, we're here now. The kids like it. You found you like the park, or you found your community of from your culture. All of a sudden, people don't want to leave, and that's what gets the government in trouble because it was intended to be a temporary residential stay until the end of the PGWP. The government does, however, say if you have a PGWP, even though we know that you're supposed to go home and you've agreed to go home, if we really could use you, maybe you could stay. Now, notice that I said use you. The government does not care that you love Canada and want to stay. It's not what can Canada do for you, it's what can you do for Canada. And that's what the government is looking at because they don't know you as a person. They just see a population. They say, okay, what do we need? What are we in trouble with right now? You know what we're in trouble with right now? Nurses. Holy cow, we need nurses. Doctors, construction workers, carpenters, plumbers, electricians. We need homes built. Homes and medical. Those are our two big areas of difficulty at the moment. So the government knows that. So They will have targeted areas for people who have those skills, and they would like you to stay, but it has to be navigated appropriately. The example that I give with regard to, and I didn't do this morning, so I'm glad I remembered for this session. Let's use the stereotypical old-fashioned boy meets girl, boy likes girl, girl invites boy over for dinner to meet the family, and maybe they're 16, 17 years old. Well, okay, maybe a little bit older. Let's make them adults. Okay, so she invites him over to meet some siblings and roommates and da da da. Would that boy show up at the door with an overnight bag? Not likely, right? Bit of a shocking suggestion, in fact. And that's kind of like coming to Canada. Yes, we do want you to stay, but no, we don't want you to come with all your luggage. Wait until you're invited. So if you're the boy who has been invited to the girl's house, you don't show up with your luggage, you leave it in the car. Now, if the evening goes well and you are invited to stay, then you can go and get your stuff. But your intention was, I'm not staying. Of course, why would I stay? I was just invited here for a meal, and then I'll be a polite gentleman and I'll leave, knowing full well you got your bag in the car just in case. But you're not going to show up with it and say, I'd like to stay, because that's not the intention of the invitation, and that's not the intention of a temporary resident program. So I hope that analogy helps a little bit, that yes, they can come, yes, they should prove that they're leaving, but if things go well, there might be an avenue for you if you're in a high demand occupation. So having strong ties is really important for that initial visit, because if they think you're going to stay, even though they might want you to, it goes against the idea of being a visitor. Strong ties include things like owning property, having a business, being a member, a contributing member of the community. Maybe you're a member of a church. Maybe you volunteer at the Humane Society or the library or the food bank or a horticultural center or a long-term care facility with senior citizens. Some place that could write you a letter to say, hey, this person has been volunteering with us for 2 years. We love their work. We understand that they're going to go to Canada for a little while, but they are a really valuable member of our volunteer team, and we would be more than happy to have them back at the end of their journey when they're back home. That just indicates to the officer that there are reasons to go back. Now, that reason alone wouldn't be enough, but if there were elderly parents and a house that you owned, and generally cars and investments, they can be easily liquidated, so that doesn't really count. But real property counts, and ties and responsibilities to your community. Let's see here. Oh, that's strong ties, right. Program specific rules. If you're in a master's, or you go into a master's or a PhD program, there is no field of study requirement anymore, but there is still for bachelor's degrees and college diplomas. In terms of CELPIP, IELTS, and PTE, I'm sure you are aware that if you're graduating from a university program, they're looking for CLB 7. And if you're graduating from a college, they're looking for CLB 5, which is really just lower intermediate. Like, it's just a little bit above beginner. So I certainly hope everybody would be, I would like it personally to be like CLB 6 at least. CLB 7 is considered the minimum for a professional, like a pharmacist, for example. You can do CELPIP, IELTS, or PTE. PTE is the Pearson Test of English. It's the latest of the 3 authorized tests. It is all AI scored, all artificial intelligence. A human does not look or listen. The AI will also scan for things like templates. In IELTS, you speak to a human. Maybe a little bit more intimidating, maybe a little bit more natural instead of talking to a computer screen. That's really up to you. The situation with IELTS is that because it's a British test, they use British vocabulary. So a truck would be a lorry, and the sidewalk would be pavement, and the hood would be a bonnet, and a trash, what do they call it? We call it a garbage can. They call it a bin. Put it in the bin. So just a few different differences that might throw you off. CELPIP is the Canadian version of IELTS. It was designed at the University of British Columbia and has gone through a couple of ownership changes and is now all over the world. So no Australian, British, New Zealand, Scottish, Irish accents at all. So it's very Canadian, very, very neutral. The home care pilot program, which opened, I think, April 1st, March 31st, I think it might have been. I indicated to people that it will close very, very quickly, and it closed within about 2 hours, simply because of demand. I didn't do any applications for this because I knew that that was going to happen, and I feel really bad. I would feel really bad to charge somebody to prepare an application only to not be able to submit it because the system crashed, there was too much traffic. A lot of people didn't even get an opportunity to submit the application. And those that did, a lot of them were way over the targeted amount and they didn't get processed. So I think they were looking for a total of 2,500, and I think it was 1,750 or thereabouts, a split between home care and care for elderly versus kids. If somebody is in nursing and really in other healthcare fields, the barriers are coming down. So in Ontario, NCLEX, which is the known nursing exam for North America, used to be required and is now no longer required. Wab Kinew, the premier of Manitoba, is tearing down barriers for doctors so that when doctors come to Canada, they can be licensed and ready to go within 6 months, as opposed to now it could be 3 years. He's absolutely right. That's absurd. Why on earth does it take 3 years to get somebody certified? We have to be faster about this. We'll see. Healthcare is a provincial matter, as is education. We're going to see a little bit later that teachers are on that list as well. But the goal is not only to tear down barriers to licensure for medical staff, but also to create interprovincial reciprocity between not only healthcare staff, but tradespeople, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, people who need to be licensed in their field. Like, you don't want an unlicensed electrician doing anything near your house, right? Burn the place down. So if you're licensed in Ontario, what, you're not allowed to work in Manitoba? It's the next province over. It's just right there. If you live in Thunder Bay and you can drive to Winnipeg in a matter of a few hours and you're offered a job there, nope, sorry. You only just drove across a provincial line. So the provinces now are saying, this is silly. We need to break down interprovincial trade and we need to break down interprovincial reciprocity. So just have that in the back of your mind, that as this continues to, I want to say unfold or unravel, all this red tape that has slowed the bureaucracy almost to a halt is all being stripped away now, primarily thanks to Donald Trump, because he's created such a ruckus that Canada realizes that if we're going to, the best person for us to rely on is ourselves. So why are we creating barriers in our own country to make it difficult for ourselves? So those are all starting to come down now, which is quite exciting to see. I have not seen in my life the level of anger and emotion and frustration and passion and unity that I'm seeing now across Canada. I've never seen it. Closest thing we came was in the mid-90s when Quebec wanted to separate and become their own country, and people across Canada freaked out. And this is about 4 times that. I've never seen Canada so furious at the United States. I mean, we have loved to hate them for years. Now we have a really good reason, as does Europe. So the boycotts that are happening in travel to the United States from Europe are unbelievable. There's a for those of you who are interested, and I won't go into this, some people don't care about politics, but for those of you who are interested, keep an eye on the alienation of the United States, because we're seeing a whole different shift happen. And I don't think it's going to come back to where it was. Canadians certainly will never forget the last 3 months, ever. Right? Certainly in this generation. So let's see here. The home care pilot will reopen. So don't worry if you got shut out. Apply again. It will reopen to international candidates. It will probably open one more time to Canadians before international because the goal is to regularize people who are already here. We've got temporary residents that are already here and already have experience. Those are the people we should be turning into permanent residents because they're already integrated into society. Right, we talked about NCLEX, the REDI program. Now, I wish I could tell you that this was a really cool federal, like the Rural and Northern Immigration Program. Unfortunately, the Rural and Northern Immigration Program closed. It was a pilot. Fine, they open, they close. It didn't really affect Ontario that much because the REDI program um, replaces one. Oh, it kept one. It kept one of the communities from the Rural and Northern Immigration Program, and it's added three new ones, which are all actually in really cool locations. They're not rural at all. Um, and the government said, we need people in these communities. Let me rephrase that. The community said to the government, we need people in our communities. So they approached the government and asked to be part of the program. And they said, we want to be part of the program because we have a specific need for a specific type of employee. So the community aligns with the employer to find an employee. And if you are the employee that applies and is chosen, then you can be eligible for permanent residency immediately by making yourself available to an employer that's in trouble, that doesn't have somebody in a high demand occupation. So the government has said, okay, there are currently 4 communities that have approached us to participate. We will give each one of those communities 200 blank applications. You can each choose 200 people. Because these are high demand jobs and it's a new program, the points required for this are not going to be very high. Okay, I'll use one of my favorite words, asinine. It would be asinine of the government to start a brand new program to help their specific community employers only to make it so difficult that they don't get anybody. That's absurd. They want to promote these communities. 200 people, 200 new people in a small town does make a difference. It's a noticeable difference. How many people are in Sarnia? What's the population of Sarnia? I thought maybe she was in the
Want to
background.
know?
Oh, no?
No,
I'm curious.
let
We'll have
me
to look that
Google
up later.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Just give it a quick little, I'm curious. Um, we're going to look at some of these communities. So it's not a program by itself. It is the OINP program still. It is the employer job offer category still, but it is a premium category for these 4 communities because they're in high need. Marriage fraud is huge because it's getting so difficult to get permanent residency with CRS points. Used to be on the rise. Now we're seeing them come down because there are no points for a job offer. So when that went away, the points went down. So that's kind of cool. We'll see what happens in the future. We don't ever try to predict what the federal government will do, but at the moment, we're seeing lower numbers. Because of the difficulty, despite the lower numbers, people are engaging in marriages of convenience. And the government is pretty quick at figuring those out. There's a lot of mechanisms that they can use, right down to planting a couple of officers outside your house to see whether or not you both live there at the same time. It's not very common that happens, but there are cases where that has happened. More likely, they will want to see lots of evidence, despite the fact that you had a marriage in a church and you had witnesses and you had a ceremony. Anybody can do that. Like, that's just really the show. That's not really getting married. Getting married is fighting over the hydro bill and frustration that somebody used the last of the cream for the coffee, and anger at the in-laws, and you know, times of difficulty regarding finances or religion or in-laws or health, talking about personal medical matters and how are we going to handle this as a family, and really the things that affect people's lives on a deeper level. That's what they're looking for, right? If you go into a spousal immigration interview and it's all happy, friendly, you're all cutesy with each other, it's not very reasonable, right? It's not very likely. I mean, you're on your best behavior, I suppose. But if the couple's in front of the immigration officer and the immigration officer asks the husband, "What's your wife's favorite color?" He says, "Pink." She gets furious. "How could you be so stupid? You know it's not pink, it's purple. I can't believe you don't pay attention to me." The immigration officer says, "Oh, you guys are definitely married." Like, that's right, because that's the reality. We bicker, we fight. If you're going to submit text messages as proof of your relationship, don't make them all lovey-dovey. "I love you, I love you too. It's so nice, I miss you." No. It's like, why weren't you here when you said you were going to be here? I have to be at work in 15 minutes. You're going to get me in trouble again with my boss. "Well, you never give me enough advance notice," and blah, blah, blah. Don't make them really angry, but we want to see some real, right? Little lovey-dovey, little boring, little finances, little fighting, little, that's life. So they are very good at figuring these fake marriages out, and the courts are full of cases where people have been accused of marriage fraud and they try to do appeals and so on. Now, very interesting category put in blue to honor the French. Do you speak French? My God, absolutely I speak French. The Canadian government has a pet project right now to increase French across Canada outside of Quebec. Through my life, I have seen the government implement programs, new programs, that start out with very, very minimal requirements. And as the programs increase in popularity and demand, they increase the requirements. And it just gets harder and harder and harder. So at the moment, it is extremely easy to get a work permit if you have a CLB 5 in French. You don't have to use French at work. You don't have to use French at home. The government just wants to know, do you have the ability to have a simple conversation in French? And if so, an employer who wants to employ you does not have to go through the process of a labor market impact assessment, an LMIA, which is at least $4,000 to $7,000, 2 to 3 months, and a lot of bloody paperwork. With the French program, you have to have proof that you can hit CLB 5, so you will have done like a CELPIP in French, like French PIP, but they don't call it that. Your job offer. The employer will set up a portal on their side, costs about $230. They will input a lot of their business information, their tax number. The government wants to make sure that they're not behind on their taxes and they haven't committed any previous fraud or disrespected any other government programs that they were part of. And so long as the employer is honest and legitimate, the government knows who they are. You apply, you send in your job offer from that company. The government links your application to that company, and you immediately apply. Well, this is all part of your application for a work permit. No LMIA required. So really, really neat program for now. It will get harder. They might start limiting communities. I don't know. It probably will be at least a couple of years before they start upping the bar because it's a new program. So take advantage now if you can. Learn French. There really has not ever been an easier program. It's not a PR program. It's a work permit program. But the work permit can be for up to 3 years and it's renewable. So you could snag 6 years of valid work permit, gain experience, increase your CRS points, depending on your age, age might bring CRS down, but experience brings CRS up again. So there is some balancing to do. In the federal skilled worker program, um, there are extra points for more experience. So that offsets, in that case, the age. I think most of you have seen something similar to this, so I won't go into this in a lot of depth, but this is the general idea. We do the educational credential assessment, or if you graduated from Lambton, then you don't have to because we already know who Lambton is. You do your CELPIP test, you create a profile, and you create profiles in every provincial program you feel like you might fit into. There is no rule against entering pools. No rules for pools. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. There are no rules for pools. Put yourself in the pool. The rule is you can't apply to two different programs at the same time, but you can express your interest in as many programs as you'd like. Then if you got two invitations, you just pick one. Pretty easy. Can't pick two, can't pick three, pick one. Pick your best choice, your best option, your best probability of success. The invitation to apply goes to people whom the government feels would be of benefit to the country or to the province. We ask you to go through a medical check to make sure that you don't have things like tuberculosis, which would spread through the community and cause havoc. I wonder if measles will be on that list soon for people who've decided not to vaccinate themselves anymore, because some people like to die like 1800s medieval peasants. But that's their choice. Medical will be required. Things like HIV, for example, are not communicable diseases that you sit beside somebody on the subway who has HIV and there's no health risk. So that sort of thing, although at one point in the 1980s when it was less understood, it was an inadmissible situation. It is not that anymore. In fact, even if you do have a medical issue, so long as you don't use over about $25,000 a year in medical services from Canada, then you're okay. If you were on some sort of cancer treatment that was costing $35,000 a year, then you become inadmissible. Right? So there's a financial cutoff whereby you're okay up to this point. Then, of course, they'll do a review of all of your paperwork going right back to your very first visitor visa or study permit to make sure that everything was done correctly. And then they'll send you a confirmation of permanent residency in your email. And if you're out of the country, you take that piece of paper to the port of entry. And if you're in the country, you don't have to do anything. The whole idea of flag polling is now gone because it was just causing too much backlog at the border and unnecessary work for something that could have been done in an office, not at the border. I'll give you a second to have a look at this. The only change here is down at the bottom, the factors that give additional points. There are no longer points for arranged employment because fraudulent or unscrupulous, that means dishonest businesses, were selling job offers because they knew that the points had value to the person who was paying them. And of course, it's illegal to sell or charge people for a job in Canada. You can't do that. Federally, you cannot charge for a job. So people are hired based on their ability, not based on what they can pay. That's absurd. Asinine. So take that one out. And don't worry so much about the age. This is for federal. There are some provincial or regional programs where they prefer somebody who's in their 30s rather than in their 20s because they know that this person has a few more years of experience under their belt in the workforce. And some communities are looking specifically for that. So when we hear rules about points, most people are thinking only about the federal express entry program, but points are used coast to coast in all sorts of programs, and they don't all follow the same rules. So there's the general idea behind express entry. Federal skilled worker, white collar workers, accountants, lawyers, engineers, the STEM fields, professors, researchers, office staff. Federal skilled trades, people who the trades are the construction jobs, so it's considered a trade for work. I'm not actually sure. It would be very interesting to look up where that came from, but I suspect it's just quite literal that if somebody knows how to build cabinets, they would trade their skills. So it's a trade: carpentry, electrician, plumber, roofer, tiler, um, uh, concrete pourer. All of these things are considered trades. Canadian experience class: if you have 1 year of full-time experience or 2 years of part-time experience, the government will slot you into one of these categories. You don't have to pick one of these. Once you go into express entry, the system will pick for you. And as soon as you are eligible, you go into the pool. And if you get invited, then they send you the invitation. And then you have to decide if you will accept the invitation. So here's what we're looking for now on a federal level. Number one, French language proficiency. Seems kind of silly. It's not an economic program. It is a cultural program, and the government takes their cultural programs quite seriously. So understand that and don't miss the opportunity if it is somewhere in your soul or spirit to be able to learn French. That would be the way I'd go at the moment. If you have any interest in healthcare or social work, it doesn't have to be nursing. It doesn't have to be a PSW. Maybe you want to be an ultrasound tech or an x-ray tech or a dental hygienist or somebody who works with, I would have to take a look. I think they're looking primarily for frontline healthcare, phlebotomists, people who do electrocardiograms. So there's lots of opportunity in healthcare far, far beyond, audiologists, people who do speech pathology. I had one of those last week, a speech pathologist from the United States. We went into the list and we took a look, and sure enough, speech pathology is on the list. So lots of healthcare required. The STEM occupations, which we've heard about for so many years. Here's a problem. Here's the problem. Because for so many decades, at least the Ontario education system, and I can only imagine this is Canada-wide, but my experience is from Ontario, started to push STEM occupations on students. Do well in math, understand sciences, build things, biotechnology, pharmaceuticals. All of this stuff was really sort of highfalutin, high class, high importance, interesting work. And as a result, people shied away from the dirty stuff like carpentry and electrician and plumbing and drywall. Well, now we have a shortage. By 2032, Ontario alone will have a shortage of between 300 and 400,000 construction workers because the current workforce that we have is retiring. Well, if they're retiring and the education system hasn't been refilling the funnel because they pushed us into STEM instead of trade, well, now we're seeing the downfall of that. We've got a very educated workforce with not enough people who can put up drywall. I had two girls from Brazil working in Kitchener, making $45 an hour each, putting up drywall in new condos. So the jobs are out there. While we're on that topic, and when we were planning this seminar, or webinar, I asked if I could, how Canadian can I be? How hockey aggressive can I get? And the reason I asked is because a lot of people come to Canada with a misconception, either given to them by the media or their agent, that it's an easy place and everybody's rich. Well, now that you've been here for a while, you realize that's not the case. And some people get very resentful. I was tricked. This isn't fair. This isn't what I signed up for. The government keeps changing the goalposts. They're kicking everybody out. The universe is against me. And it's easy to think that, especially when people, not you, but when people limit themselves to a very competitive market. So if you insist on being in Toronto and you want a job that pays six figures and you want to be able to afford a house, that is an extremely competitive field that you're in, or extremely competitive environment that you're in. Looking for a house in Sarnia, or I'm in North Bay right now, or Windsor, or Elliott Lake, where I spent some time in the summer of 2023, there was a condo in Elliott Lake for $89,000. It was a one-bedroom condo, nothing fancy, built in the 80s, still very clean, good landscaping, one bedroom, kitchen, living room, dining room, bathroom, obviously laundry in the building, but not in the unit. 89,000. I mean, guys, girls, people, that's a deposit in Toronto. That's a down payment. So if you're willing to leave the city and go into a smaller community, which is exactly the idea behind the REDI program, people move slower, they're kinder, they're more thoughtful because they're not rushing everywhere all the time. There's nothing like Toronto once you leave Toronto. You drive across Canada, nothing like Toronto once you leave Toronto. So for those of you who are in Sarnia or the Lambton County, and you know that region, that's more the feel of the rest of Ontario. It's rural, there's farms, people don't have the city sort of attitude that people in Toronto have. So that's trade occupations. Agriculture and agri-food is at the moment only butchers. So I'm sorry if you're a farmer, it only applies to, I guess, people who can cut up meat. Education occupations. Now this is new. Education is teachers, primarily early childhood education, including early childhood education assistants, teachers of students with special needs, elementary, primary, elementary, and high school. Those are the levels that they're looking for education. Generally at the college and university level, they are using master's graduates or students, or PhD graduates or students. I don't think there's anything I wanted to add. Oh yes, so what's missing? What used to be on the express entry list that is no longer here? Where did the truck drivers go? What happened to our transportation sector? We used to need people for assembling airplanes, working on trains, working at the ports, working on boats, driving trucks, hauling equipment. That whole category is gone. So I don't know if it's because there was a problem with the truck driving schools, because there was a big expose. Not sure if you're aware of that. It's a great word, expose. They were exposed. The driving schools, certainly in Ontario, and it might have been Canada-wide, and you can find this on CBC Marketplace. There was an episode, I'm trying to think how long ago now, within the last year, and it basically exposed how the truck driving schools were committing fraud by not really training their people appropriately. And we're driving around on the roads with these people doing 120 kilometers an hour. I want that truck driver to know what to do if they start jackknifing in a black ice situation. And we're not getting that right now. So I think that was part of the government's reason to shut down that program, was to reevaluate the training that truck drivers get. But as I say, it didn't just assist truck drivers. I had somebody in New Brunswick who became a permanent resident because they installed electronic components in aircraft dashboards. Do you know what it does? Nope. Know how to fix it? Nope. Why are you important? I know how to plug it in to make sure it works properly. That sounds reasonable. So the government made a category for him. Not for him, but for people that work in airplanes. So it doesn't have to be driving a truck or operating a train. You don't have to be an operator. You can just be part of the crew that assists transportation in the country. So we might see that coming back. Although it's not an express entry category, I still would encourage you to look at things like CN Rail and any of the freighter companies that do shipping on the Great Lakes. Those are areas that are generally in high demand, and I would avoid trucking and shipping. OTR, they say, over the road. I would avoid all that stuff. But over the rails, fine. Over the water, fine. So here is this Northern Economic Program we were talking about. 800 skilled workers just for in-demand careers. So it's not the whole community. You've got to reach out to the community that you're interested in, find out which employers are participating or what those in-demand careers are, and then determine whether or not you have something to offer to that community. And if you do, you say, hey, I can help you. It's not, I would like to live in your community because it's beautiful. It's, I've got skills that you need. We're going to make a deal here or what? And when I was talking about maybe being a little bit aggressive with the group, is to remind you that if your ultimate goal is to become a permanent resident, don't get too comfortable in the big cities. Or quite frankly, even in Ontario. Ontario is pretty cushy, guys. We have 40% of the country's population. We are the economic engine of the entire country. By the time the federal vote, which is coming up on April, whatever it is, 28th or something, by the time the federal vote gets through Ontario, the outcome has already been determined. The rest of the provinces don't sway the volume of people that we have in Ontario. So Ontario's great. Nice roads, great farms, relatively good healthcare. We can always find cracks in the system, but we hear these horror stories, but I'll tell you, when I talk to my personal friends and family, and I say, hey, what was the last time you were at the hospital? Well, it was here. And how long were you there? Well, about 4 hours. And, what was the outcome? Well, we got some x-rays and we have to go back for a checkup with our family doctor. And what did it cost you? Nothing. I'm like, okay. So there was a little bit of waiting involved. They have to do a follow-up a little bit later. Generally speaking, the system's pretty good. Like if you get into a car accident or you walk into an ER with a heart attack, you're not waiting. Okay? If somebody shoots you or some lawnmower part flies off and stabs you and you're bleeding, you're not waiting. Okay? The people who wait are the people who go with a tummy ache or a sore hand or, a pimple that won't pop. I mean, a lot of things are really not emergencies at all in the ER. So that's also part of the issue. Here are the counties that you are looking at. Lanark. We're going to look at where these are. I've got maps for you here in just a sec. Leeds and Grenville, which is next door to Lanark. Sarnia-Lambton, which some of you are in now. And Thunder Bay, which is a little bit further north of where I am now. The goal is healthcare, technology, and skilled trades. I hesitate because I don't even know how aggressive they would be in the technology field. If you really kind of want to solidify your career for the next at least 20 years, it would be healthcare and construction. Those are the two things that we're going to need the most over the next 20 years. So here is Lanark County. Lanark County, a little bit west of Ottawa. It's about an hour drive, maybe 45-minute drive to Ottawa. This whole area, as much of Ontario is small little lakes and cottage country. So this little gray area here of Mississauga, Toronto, Barrie, right? So this here's Barrie here. So Lake Simcoe is here. So up to Lake Simcoe, and if people could take the GO train into Toronto, you can see that it's going to be expensive because they can earn money in Toronto, and some people earn a lot of money in Toronto, and those are the people who can afford to buy the houses here. But if you go into the green area near Algonquin Park and all the little towns that are around Algonquin Park, things get much less expensive. I like Lanark County, but even more so, I'll show you that in just a sec. What do you have to do? Secure a full-time job offer. Apply to the job offer stream, get your nomination. Really easy. Not a whole lot of difference at all. The difference is you are finding employers that are in trouble and you're offering them your services. There is Leeds Grenville. So Lanark County is just a little bit north here at Carlton Place. I really like this community here. The drive from Kingston through to Cornwall and up the St. Lawrence, really all the way to Montreal and Quebec City, is quite nice. This is all sort of cottage country. Prince Edward County. I'm trying to think of the name of that little town that's out there. There's Mohawk Territory in Prince Edward County, PEC. There's a lot of wineries. There's a very famous apple cider, alcoholic apple cider company called Wapus in Prince Edward County as well. So lovely area. The Thousand Islands, for some of you may know it as the Thousand Islands. Here's where some of you might be now with regard to Lambton College. Here's Sarnia, a little bit north of Windsor, west of London. Windsor to Toronto is about 4 hours. I think Sarnia is probably about 3.5. Opposite Sarnia is Port Huron, and of course opposite Windsor is Detroit. And these are, well, not so much Port Huron, but Detroit and Windsor, major trade corridor for automobile parts. They're both those are the two automobile cities, Detroit and Windsor. And of course, with the trade situation that we're seeing, both of those towns are really struggling right now because car parts are being tariffed and car factories are already slowing down their lines and laying people off in some cases. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next little while. Here's your email, or sorry, your website for Sarnia Lambton. Don't be afraid to send an email, or don't be afraid to call them if there's a telephone number available. If you are from Toronto, you may have come to learn that calling people isn't always helpful because everybody's in a hurry and they sometimes try to get you off the phone quickly. I do not find that that is the case in the rural areas. I find people far more relaxed and willing to sit back and have at least a civil conversation with you because there's not 200 people in line behind you. That's the problem with Toronto is that, or Vancouver or Montreal or Quebec or Calgary or Halifax, is that there's so much competition that it's difficult to get through to do the things that you want to do. So the opportunities are there, but the competition is also huge. And some people find it much easier to go to a place with less competition, and because other people don't think about it. People think about the big cities. So this is Thunder Bay, Ontario. Thunder Bay is beside a big piece of water, and that's all you need to know about Thunder Bay. So that should probably be the end of my webinar, because do we really need to know about, you want to know about Thunder Bay a little bit more? If you really want to. It's way up there, guys. Can you find it here on this map? Where is Thunder Bay? It's a long drive, let me tell you. It is cold up there. The blue dot is where I am right now. Right here, North Bay. 4 hours from Toronto. So it's kind of like Toronto to Ottawa, but in a different direction. North instead of northeast. Thunder Bay's way up here. So if we look at it from another perspective, it's 15 hours to drive from Toronto to North to Thunder Bay. It's 2 8-hour days, roughly, of driving and stopping to get gas and go pee and re-up the coffee. You could shave off, it looks like not a whole lot of time. Let's see here. Yeah, look at this route. Here you have to go through the United States. And if you think about that for 3 seconds, that would really be a dumb idea right now. So don't take a US route. And in fact, from Toronto, it looks like it's further anyway. Keep it a Canadian route. This whole area here is really quite beautiful. And above Lake Superior is one of my top 3 drives in Canada in terms of just natural beauty. It's just rocks and trees and lakes and rivers and streams and waterfalls, and it's fantastic. Here's how close you are to Winnipeg. So this is why I was saying, if you're an electrician in Thunder Bay, why can you not go to Winnipeg and go to work? Just because this little line is here and it says, oh no, that's a different jurisdiction, you need a different license. Are you joking? So what they're trying to do now is break down that inter-provincial barrier and say, if you are licensed in Ontario, we will give you reciprocity to be licensed in Manitoba as well. So a lot of the provinces are starting to do that now, reciprocity with each other. The East Coast has successfully done this with healthcare staff. If you're a doctor in Newfoundland, then you're also considered a doctor in Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. That's pretty cool. Get licensed in one and be able to work in all. That's a nice trade agreement. There's another quick little view here to give you a better perspective of relative to the size of Canada, where we are from Toronto to Thunder Bay. So what to say about Thunder Bay? I mean, I tease Thunder Bay like you don't need to know anything about it because it's too far away. The reality is it's gorgeous. There are opportunities. There is not much competition because other people don't want to go. And this brings me back to how firm can I be with the people in the webinar? Because if you want to stay cushy and soft in the city, the probability of meeting your objective goes down. If you get an invitation to Nunavut and you know that it's going to give you a permanent residency, take it. If that's the ultimate goal, do it. Because once you have permanent residency, you can go wherever you want. So don't be afraid of a couple of years, 2 years in a community to try it out. Earn your PR, and in exchange for your PR, you're willing to give the community a chance for 2 years. What they're hoping is by the time you've been there for a couple of years, you've made some friends, you've joined a softball league, your spouse has integrated with the community, the kids have made friends in school, and you're not going anywhere. That's the goal. That's the hope. Right? And this is how the communities grow. Anything I want to comment? I think we are good. Quebec immigration is very unusual. It's a whole different animal. So, and you'll have to know French very, very well. New Brunswick is officially our only bilingual province because Quebec is our French province. New Brunswick is officially our only bilingual province. PEI is saturated, really, really small and far, far too many people. Nova Scotia Halifax is saturated, but this west side of Nova Scotia is also beautiful. Tiny little towns, lovely people, a lot of French as well in Nova Scotia. So don't be afraid to explore towns that you've never heard of. Here are some projections. Family reunification remains an important goal for the country. If somebody is here in Canada and the spouse and or children are overseas, the goal is to reunify those families as quickly as possible within the laws of immigration. And that brings back the conundrum, the problem that we talked about earlier, is that we want you here, but we need to know that it's temporary. So it's not as easy. It's not quite as cut and dried, but if it's approached correctly, then yes, 24% is a spectacular number for family reunification. Francophone immigration outside of Quebec, 8.5%, also very high number when you look at the overall projections of, I think, 350 or 400,000 people. Economic immigration, number one. What are you able to contribute economically? What work can you do to contribute to the economy of the country? And there it is again, healthcare, education, teachers, and skilled trades, all of the construction stuff. So here are some links. I don't know if the links will be live in the PDF document that you get, but you should be able to cut and paste them. The job bank is a good place to do market research. It's actually not a great place to find a job. That might change because here's the thing. Here's the problem with the job bank. When a company applies for a labor market impact assessment, the government says you must advertise the job so that we know that you tried to find a citizen or a permanent resident. And one of the places that you must advertise is on the job bank. So all of these companies apply on the job bank for positions where they already know the person they want to hire. But they're doing it to meet the requirement of the government to advertise for 4 weeks to make sure that there's no Canadian or permanent resident that would be a better option. So a lot of the jobs on Job Bank are not real. Now, here's something else that I learned recently that did not impress me very much. Some companies upload job vacancies only for show to indicate to their competitors and maybe to the public that they are a growing company. Look at us having to hire new people. Aren't we great? Meanwhile, there's no job. No job. So I'm sorry about that. Job Bank indeed remains to be a good place. Job fairs. And don't be one of the people who sits at home in their pajamas banging out resumes and cover letters to these companies because they're going right into the circular file, which is just a polite way of saying the garbage can. Make yourself known. Go and talk to people. Ask for appointments. Ask for 5 minutes with human resources at a company. Be a little bit more assertive. If they only have an online portal, then maybe contact the company and see if they have volunteer opportunities or open houses or anything that can get you face to face with somebody in HR. Once they know who you are, half the battle is won already. So work permits for family members if you're working, special category-based selection draws, which we talked about for French and butchers and teachers and STEM. And what else was there? Construction. Here's our rural program, rural and northern economics, so REDI. But REDI is one of those programs where the opportunities are there, but you have to look. It's not one of those programs that says, hey, look at all these jobs we have available, please apply. You're going to have to be less, more proactive and less reactive, I guess, or passive, I guess, is what I'm looking for. You're gonna have to be more active than passive in this category. Physically contact the community. Some communities might want you to do an exploratory visit. Come overnight. Meet with one of our representatives. Let us drive you around town and show you where the schools are and where the grocery stores are and where the parks are, so that you can feel like, is this a place that you'd like to be? Because if you get there and the town looks disgusting, well then why even put in an expression of interest? If it's tolerable so that you get your PR, that's fine. But if it's horrible and you know for sure that you would just never live there, then that's the whole point of the exploratory visit. They don't want you to go through the whole trouble of applying and them accepting you, and only then you realize, I don't like it here. So they invite you to go up early. Take a quick little breather here. We probably have a couple of questions before we get into the CELPIP part. So I'll see what's up on the other side. What have you got over there?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Great
You're
advice. Try to visit these places. Sarnia is lovely. I don't know if you've been there. Sarnia is very nice.
I used to go camping just north of Sarnia all the time. It was great.
Yes, it's a good advice. Go around.
Yeah,
go around and take a look, and then you decide whether is it something that you will enjoy or not. That's very important.
Some people go to a small community and they say, you know what, I can't do it. It's way too small. I need the action. I need the noise. I need the sirens. I need the theaters and the fancy restaurants and the cinemas. And other people say, I can't believe how peaceful it is. This is so nice. The air smells different and the people are more friendly in the grocery store, and some people really like it. So it is a trade. It's very personal. So you've got to decide. The cheapest real estate in the country usually is in Saskatchewan. Because nobody wants to live in Saskatchewan.
It's cold.
Well, it's just not a very appealing province. They don't make a whole lot of money. The roads are not in good shape. They don't have very good infrastructure. But as a result, it's easy to get PR, and the houses are 1/10 the price of they are anywhere else. But the trade is you have to live in Saskatchewan. So this is the decision that you have to make. When people say Canada is so expensive, everything's $1 million. Yes, if you want waterfront property in Toronto or Vancouver, it's $1 million. But if you want a smaller community that's more rural in 50,000 or less population, you're paying far, far less. And the houses aren't as fancy, but they don't have to be. They're not city houses, they're country houses.
All right, we can go through a couple of questions
Sure.
and then we move to the CELPIP portion of today's webinar. Okay, let's get started. I think you already kind of replied this one, but let's see if you have something else to say here. Is there a resource for companies in the REDI communities that are hiring?
I think that should be on the REDI page of the community. So the way these have worked in the past is you go to, let's say, the Sarnia Lambton / REDI. They should have a list of employers already. If they don't, contact them and ask them who are the employers that are participating. But I 99% sure that it'll be on their webpage, because the whole point is to reach out to these particular employers to fill the need. So if you don't see it on their webpage, contact them directly, send them an email, and they should be able to then send you a list of the employers that are participating.
Perfect. And remember, you don't need to create like a profile for the REDI per se, but as long as you have your OIMP profile and you qualify, they will direct you to this path. So it's not
Correct.
something that you need to do. That's great.
No, just have to find a job. Just go and find a job. And once you have a job offer, you're set.
Perfect. Let's go through another question. What about when you studied a postgrad, but the job is not considered a trade, not a STEM either? For example, I am quality control inspector for piping, but I am an engineer. My job is not a trade, but neither is steam and paper.
Is it an engineering diploma?
I believe so.
Or engineering degree?
Should be. Yeah, I'm an engineer, so I think she got one of our engineer.
I would double check to make sure that that doesn't fall under STEM. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't mean that there aren't options, but it means express entry probably is not the best route. So you would look at the job bank for your NOC code, and you would look province by province to see what the outlook is over the next 3 to 5 years. And there will be a star system. So if, let's say, Ontario gets 1 star, but British Columbia gets 4 stars, then obviously they're saying, don't come to Ontario. We don't see much of a future here. But British Columbia is saying, we have a big need. We're expanding that market. Please come. So you use the job bank to your advantage and focus on provincial nomination programs. Failing that, the LMIA or French is a great option because it buys you time, because you can find a job and not have to go through the difficulty of the PR application while you are maybe finding something that's more appropriate for you. But that's difficult. I don't know if this applies to you, but there will be some people who just don't fit one of the categories. And it's very, very frustrating because you put in time and effort and you got the paper and you were successful, and then the government all of a sudden says that thing that you just studied we don't have a need for anymore, and you're like, but I just finished, like, so it's hard. I get it, but don't limit yourself to express entry. There are many, many other programs to look at.
Yeah, probably it has to be that she's saying that she is a quality control inspector for piping right now.
For piping, I mean, we're talking like oil piping or water piping or gas piping, or
yeah, again, it will depend on the NOG, I guess. We do have a great webinar about NOG. We explain you how to find your NOG. It's very complicated sometimes when they ask us during webinars, what's my NOG if I study this? Because we actually need to match all your duties with the NOG. So if you go through that webinar, you can find it on our YouTube channel. Probably that will help you a little bit more to understand. And what Rod told you as well right now, try to, first look at your NOG and then identify a province probably that might fit your necessities in this case. Book a consultation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's every case is very different. Even if I have 2 people who have graduated from the same program and they come from the same country, their cases are different based on who they're married to. Do they have dependents? Are the dependents adopted? Are there any medical conditions? Are there any legal issues? Where in the province do you want to be? What have you applied for already? Have you been denied entry in any other countries? Like, so many other things that we have to navigate. So it's very difficult to give a one-size-fits-all kind of answer.
She just said oil piping, but still, I don't know if you can say something else with this information.
Okay, yes. Well, right away, my brain goes to Alberta. Alberta is our oil and gas province. If any place is going to be able to hire you, it's going to be the oil fields and the oil sands outside of Edmonton. Now, what's interesting, this doesn't help you today or tomorrow or in the next couple of years, but what's interesting is because of the fight that we're having with the United States, we are transitioning our oil from going north-south to going east-west. So we'll be cutting off the United States in terms of a major customer, and we might sell them a little bit, but it won't be the 60% of the oil that they get now from Canada. They're not getting that anymore because we've already made deals with China because the United States pissed us off and we're like, well, we're not dealing with you anymore. We're taking our toys and we're going home. So we made deals with other countries, as many other countries in the world have done. They just started making alliance and excluding the United States. So our oil will now go from Alberta through Quebec, through Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and to the East Coast. So a lot of the oil will end up in Labrador, Newfoundland, Labrador, and it will be refined inside Canada, which is great. Natural gas will go in the other direction to Asia. We'll supply natural gas to China and other Western, Eastern, Western direction, Eastern Hemisphere countries. So oil and gas is great. And here's another job that people don't think of. Being a heavy equipment operator on the oil sands. Loud, dirty, isolated, cold, very little education, and $150,000 a year. We got kids getting out of high school, 18, 19, 20 years old. They're going up to the oil fields. By the time they're 30, they're coming back and buying houses in cash. But do you want your corner office in your ocean view house in Vancouver? Feel free to stay where you are. If you want to get your hands dirty and say, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to provide something to the country that I want to stay in forever, then you sacrifice and you give something to the country that you want to stay in forever. And in trade, they'll give you permanent residency. But you might have to do some work that you don't really like going up to the oil sands. Now, this person who's a pipe operator, she might love the oil sands. Like, oh my God, that's exactly what I want to do. So, that's wonderful. Don't limit yourself to Alberta, but that's the first place that I would check. That is the oil and gas province.
Perfect. Let's go through another question. The pharmacy assistant job applies for the health category.
Sorry, you're saying does it? It's a question?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. That's the health category for pharmacy assistant job.
Where is that? Can you still see my screen or no?
Yeah.
It'll be in recents. I have the whole list here. I'll show it to you. In fact, I can even share it, and you could include it if you want.
Good.
Because I'm screen sharing, my computer is going to be a little slower here, but just bear with me for a sec. If for whatever reason it's too slow, I'll just send you the file, but it looks like we might have some success here.
And I recommend you to stay until the very end because we have an amazing promo that Rod is offering us today. So you need to stay until the end so you can actually take advantage of it.
Category, here it is right here. All right, can you see this new spreadsheet?
Yeah.
It says Express Entry.
Mm-hmm.
So there they are here. So what's the job?
Job is pharmacy assistant.
Pharmacy technical assistant and pharmacy assistant, code 33103. It's a tier 3 job. It's eligible for Express Entry.
So it falls under the health category, yeah?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. So I'll send you this. You can see. So yeah, the first category is all health. So animal health. Like we need veterinarians like crazy. We got a lot of farms here. And in Northern Ontario, not Northern Ontario, but like north of Toronto, they need people who know how to birth cows and, give horses injections and stuff. So not jobs that people often think about. There's the audiologist, cardiology, chiro, medical lab technologists, optometrists, occupational therapists, physician assistants, social workers. Black line, new category. Architects, civil engineers, cybersecurity specialists, electrical engineers, electronics, insurance. Oh, look at this, insurance agents and brokers, right? You just never know what's
Interesting.
yeah, right? Really cool. Mechanical engineers, geological engineers. This is because of the mining. You've been hearing a lot of talk in the news lately about precious minerals, rare earth minerals. This is geological engineers. We want to send you up into Northern Ontario to find gold and uranium and cobalt and whatever these substances are required for things like missile defense. Like they use these precious metals in missile defense systems, and I'm like, I had no idea. So very, very high demand for that to the United States. Another category: contractors, floor covering, concrete finishers, roofers, electrical mechanics, table maker, cabinet makers, bricklayers, carpenters, gas fitters, plumbers, welders. Another category, this is our only agriculture category: butchers. And then we have our teachers, the elementary and the instructors of persons with disability, early childhood education, and then our French speaker category. So these are all of the category-based draws that are happening right now.
Now that we are there, probably we can take a look about this question as well. Is medical admin assistant classified as healthcare job?
Generally not. They want to see something that's patient, what do they call it?
Medical
Like
admin
front line patient. So let's see here. Medical lab assistant. Sorry, what did you call it? Medical
admin, so
medical
administrator
admin.
thing. Yeah, assistant.
I don't think so. Medical sonographer, nurses' aides. No. They want you to do something specifically with patients.
Okay.
All of these things are, gloves on patients, hands on, as opposed to admin. Now remember, this is for express entry. So if you are in medical office administration, then you would look for provincial categories instead of federal categories. That's all. Don't be disappointed or dissuaded by not being part of the federal program, because there are tons of provincial programs.
Totally. Okay, let's move forward to another question. Can you please share more light on the home care program, especially the requirements needed?
Home care. The home care program has actually got quite a lot easier. Now, it's not an area that I work in regularly, but as I recall the recent changes, it is only a high school diploma that is required. You have to have, I think, 6 months of experience, full-time experience in some sort of child care. And I don't think there's a requirement to have taken a PSW course, although that's what I recommend to people. Take some sort of child care or PSW course. But I don't think that's an official requirement, but it would help you get a job, because one of the requirements is having a job offer. So it's a super, super easy category. The problem is they don't invite very many people, and it's very competitive. So as we saw on March the 31st, the program opens and closes within 120 minutes. The program gets flooded with applications, the system crashes, people get upset, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
So easy, but not easy. Easy eligibility, difficult to get an invitation.
Totally. Okay, why don't we just say we go through a couple more questions, because we do have more, but still we need to go through the CELPIP part.
We do.
Okay, then let's see. I am currently on a PGWP with open work permit until 2027. Am I eligible for the Francophone work permit?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Start learning French now.
Yeah. By the way, go ahead. Sorry.
Prove your CLB 5 far before your current PGWP expires. Get hired, and then you can apply for a new work permit. It won't be there's no such thing as a PGWP extension, but it'll be a different work permit under a different category. And they're 2 to 3 years, depending on what the company requests, and they are renewable. So it's a great way to buy time.
Good. Yeah, by the way, we do have some special promos. If you want to study French, send us an email and we can give you all that information. One more, what advice would you give to a person who wouldn't fall into any of those job categories? Would that mean that that all hopes are lost?
All hopes are never lost. There's always some sort of strategy. One strategy is become certified in one of those jobs that are in high demand. One of the easiest ways to do that is a personal support worker program where you're helping elderly people, or something like a dental hygienist, dental assistant, dental hygienist, or early childhood education assistant. These are all entry-level programs. Nursing aid, healthcare aid. These are all entry-level programs that are in high-demand occupations. So number one is retrain. Number two is learn French, because French is its own category. So it can be in any occupation, and you don't need to use French at work. Number three would be, we said take another program, so school, learn French, find a labor market impact assessment, somebody who is willing to spend the money and the time to request the government permission to hire a foreign national. And it does happen. They happen by the thousands. So people say LMIAs are impossible. There are lists and scads of companies that apply for LMIAs and get them all the time, because the government knows that there are shortages of thousands of people in certain sectors. So some companies will apply for an LMIA for 20 or 30 people at once. It'll just be an LMIA for 30 people. That's a $30,000 application. You're paying $1,000 per person. That's none of the legal fees. That's just the application fee for the company. But if you've got a company that's worth $700 million because you've got trucks all the way across Canada, $30,000 is really no big deal. So find an LMIA, retrain, learn French, or marry a Canadian.
But prove it, like we heard already. You need to prove that it's actually.
Don't marry a Canadian in with false pretenses. I mean, fall in love with a Canadian genuinely, and then get married.
Yeah.
Humanitarian and compassionate. I hear people asking about that. What about humanitarian and compassionate? Not a good idea. In the best of times, it's a 50-50. And most of the time, when people are desperate and they go to this agency application, there really is nothing to be compassionate for. You know, the person comes from a good country, they're not being shot at, they're not being targeted for persecution, their family member isn't the only member that's in Canada. There's no, I mean, if somebody, let's say, if somebody's in Canada and they don't have any family here, and they're not married and they don't have kids, they can't sponsor a spouse because they don't have one. They can't sponsor kids because they don't have any. Their grandparents are long gone because they're already old. Now what do? Now the government says, oh, humanitarian and compassionate. We will be compassionate to the fact that you don't have anybody here, and we will allow you to sponsor somebody who isn't on the list officially. And then they let you go further down the list, like a nephew or a niece or a cousin. Things that aren't normally allowed, but they bend the rules because of humanitarian and compassionate reasons. So agency is an option, but it really has to be a super, like, if you can't make the judge cry, you're probably not going to get it. So it has to be really a good sob story. Refugee status. A lot of students, PGWP expiring workers, are trying the refugee route, and the government is now closing up that option because they realize that these are not, most of them are not genuine refugee claims. And it's funny because I'll see people online say, if I apply for refugee status, how long before I can go home? Well, the whole point of refugee status is that you don't want to go home because it's too dangerous for you there. So if you tell the government you're willing to go home, then you don't need to apply for protection. Protection from what? Home's fine. You're willing to go there on vacation. Obviously, you're not afraid of anything. So stick with the first two options. Avoid the agency and the refugee.
Okay, what will you say if we go through the last one and then we can move to CELPIP? We had a very similar question in the morning.
Okay.
Is it okay to submit EOI in another province in Canada, Manitoba, for example, will it conflict our current application in OIMP if they found that they submitted also to another province?
Okay, so we're confusing an expression of interest with an application. You have not submitted an application to Ontario. You've only submitted an expression of interest. And two expressions of interests will not compete with each other. But you can only apply to one program. So if you get an expression of interest from Ontario and an expression of interest from Manitoba, you have to pick one. You can't apply to both. But you are allowed to be in as many pools at the same time as possible, right? You've got it's Halloween night and there are a whole bunch of parties that you want to go to and you've told people that you're available and you're just waiting for an invitation. You can tell as many people as you want that you're available to go for a party, but you can only take one invitation. So that's like a PNP. You're welcome to make yourself available to be asked. But once you're asked, like getting married, and two people ask you to get married, you got to pick one. At least in Canada. You got to pick one.
Okay, good. I think we should move forward
Okay.
because already an hour and a half.
Yep.
And by the way, the population of Sarnia, it's 72K. Thanks for the info.
Oh, 72,000. That's nice. That's a
Yeah.
nice size.
Yeah.
Like 50 to 100,000 is nice because it's big enough that you have everything that you need. You're going to have a clinic and a hospital and high schools and restaurants and parks and, auto mechanics and clothing stores and, that's a good number. Like even in Elliott Lake, we had 11,000 people, but we had a Canadian Tire and we had a Dollarama and we had 3 grocery stores and we had 3 pharmacies and we had all 5 major banks. Like we had 1 bowling alley, we had 2 bars. I mean, it was very exciting. It's a small little community. There's not a lot going on, but they have at least one of everything, usually.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, sorry?
No, sorry, you can go
No,
ahead
it's okay, great.
and then we will need to get back
do it.
to the other questions we do have.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, no problem. CELPIP is always designed the same way. So know the structure of the test so that you aren't surprised by any of the tasks that they ask you to do. So we have multiple listening tasks that progressively get more difficult. The test is designed to break you at some point. So don't fall victim to beating yourself up or getting sort of into a psychological funk because you screwed up a couple of questions and now you think that you've ruined the whole test. The design of the test is you have to screw up eventually because if you didn't, everybody would get perfect. And then now how are we going to know anybody's level? So the whole point is to make it progressively in each category more and more difficult until eventually you can't. But sometimes that messes with people's brains. So just know in your heart of hearts that that's the design of the test. This is where they broke me. This is what was expected. I don't feel bad, and move on to the next section. There's nothing personal about it at all. It's just the design of the test. So we had this listening section. We'll go into in a bit more depth in just a moment. My key point here is take notes. They give you a pen, they give you paper, use them and write until your hand cramps up. The best way to get good at reading is to simply read more. We will go, I'll show you the examples. But ultimately, if you don't like reading, and a lot of people just tell me, teacher, I don't read, I don't like reading. That's because you're not reading something that you're interested in. I have parents that tell me, oh, my teenage son never wants to read anything, his homework and the books that the school gives him, and he doesn't ever read. And I say, but if your 14-year-old son got a 2-page letter from that cute girl on the other side of the class, think he's going to read it? Read it. He's going to read it like 5 times. Of course he's going to read it. Because all of a sudden there's something interesting that he wants to read and he wants to get all the information out of. And when he's composing a reply, do you think it's going to be a quick reply? Heck no. He's going to write, he's going to edit, he's going to cross words out, change stuff, move stuff around. Like, this is really important. And that's the idea behind reading and making it interesting and fun. Because if it's not fun, you won't do it. And if you don't do it, you don't improve. So read about sailing. Like in my case, what would I like? I would read about boats, sailing, scuba diving, the Caribbean, photography, cooking, and maybe playing the guitar. Maybe bicycling, cross country bicycling. I don't know, something camping, interesting stuff for me. Other people like celebrities and game shows and you know, uh, I can't think of them because they're not my interests, but reality TV or uh, actors and actresses and pop culture. That's not my world, but it's the world for a lot of people. They love that stuff. What's this actor doing? What's this? What did they win? What are they nominated for? Did you see that movie? Have you watched the series on Netflix? Blah blah blah. It goes on and on. If that's what you're interested in, read it. If you like the Handmaid's Tale, read the book. There aren't very many people, in fact, if any, who will tell you, I read the book, but I preferred the movie. It's always the other way around. I read the book, the movie wasn't as good. The movie's never as good as the book. Because the book, you've created the characters in your mind to be the way you expect them to be or want them to be. Um, so reading is great. If it's something that you're interested in, a bit of an imagination. If you don't want to read a whole novel, find a magazine and read articles instead so that they're more digestible, smaller little pieces. We'll talk in a moment about going into the reading a little bit more depth and some more tricks that you can use. The writing is always two tasks. It's always an email. It's always a survey question, which means we would like to ask for your opinion on A versus B. Give us your opinion and explain why you think it's a better choice. It's always going to be something like that. And then the options are just different. So it might be your company wants to do corporate training. Do we do corporate training at a resort in Niagara Falls where your whole family can come along and we do a couple of hours of training on a Saturday and a Sunday and the rest of the time you can goof around? Or do we do a corporate training for a week in Jamaica, but you can't take your family? There's no right or wrong answer for that. That's your opinion. They're not judging your opinion for accuracy or quality. They're judging your opinion for how well you develop your ideas and explain yourself. That's all. Nobody's going to say this test taker has a terrible opinion. They're not thinking about your opinion. Sometimes when a student replies an answer to me, I have to ask them to repeat themselves because I wasn't actually listening to the information. I was listening to grammar and pronunciation and intonation and flow and rhythm and all these other things, that so much so that I missed the meaning because I was looking at all these other things. So clarity is key. And in terms of speaking, this is the area that I think most people are afraid of because you can't take it back. Right? You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube once it's out. So once the words are out of your mouth, there's no grabbing them and putting them back in. So I think that's what makes people a little bit more nervous. With the writing, you have time to edit. With speaking, there's no time to edit. As a result, do not waste your preparation time. Again, we'll go into these questions here in just a moment, but the overarching theme for speaking is use the preparation time to think about your answer, give some reasons as to what your ideas are and reasons as to why they are your ideas. And make sure that you answer all parts of the question. So if the question asks you, tell me about a time when you lost something that was very, very precious to you. Who gave it to you? How did you lose it? And why was it so important? And if they ask you those three things, don't answer just one or two. Be very particular. If they ask for three, give them three. Who, where, why? Give them who, where, why. Who, what, when? Give them who, what, when. Look for these questions within the question. So task one is listening to a situation. It could be a car accident, or in this case, a car, they have a flat tire. And it will be a phone call that you're listening to between the auto club person and the driver, and these sort of details that they'll be talking about. So you're going to write this stuff down. They have a flat tire. They're in Mississauga. Their car is a 2011 Honda Accord. It's red. They're going eastbound. And again, any other helpful details. So they might say we are 5 minutes east of exit 12, right? So, oh, that's very valuable information. So you write that down. So journalism questions: who, where, why, what, when, how. How did they get there? When did they get there? How are they going to be helped? Who's going to help them? What do they have to do? What are the obligations? What are the expectations? Any sort of information. And this will be a super easy one. If you've graduated college, tasks 1, 2, and 3, even 4, not difficult for you at all. Daily life conversation. Oh, hey, Bob. Oh, hi, Mary. I haven't seen you in so long. I know, it's been like since high school. What have you been doing? Well, you remember I was dating Catherine? Well, she and I got married and we had a couple of kids. Oh my God. I have a couple of kids too. I have 2 girls. Oh, I have 2 boys. You're just listening to a conversation. Where do you live now? Oh, I'm in Scarborough. Oh, we were in Scarborough for a little while, but my husband Bob, or my wife Mary, got a job in Ottawa. So next month we're moving to Ottawa, but that's okay because our son Ralph is going to university at Carleton. All of these things, you're writing these things down so that when the questions come around, whose son goes to Carleton University? Or why are they excited to go to Ottawa? Or do they have, how many children do they have? Or whatever the questions might be. So it's just a, where have you been? What have you been doing? What are you up to? Haven't seen you in a long time. Friendly conversation. Now we have more of an interview kind of situation. Elon Musk, the founder of a whole bunch of amazing companies that are now falling apart because he's decided to become political instead of just being a business person. Again, we're listening for things that you think would be easy to ask a question about. Names are easy to ask a question about. Facts, dates, percentages, numbers, these are all objective. Feelings, assertions, opinions, I think, I believe, in my experience, or opposition, however, but, although, unfortunately, uh, here, surprisingly, I'm trying to think of other words other than the ones that are here. Um, Remarkably, and so lots of words that we can use to indicate a difference of opinion. News stories get a little bit more difficult still. You're listening in a news story, again, for the journalism questions. What happened? Where did it happen? How did it happen? Why did it happen? When did it happen? What's the future going to hold? How are we going to solve the problem? So in this case, 2 o'clock Saturday, or the endangered species list. And you think, oh, list? As soon as my ears hear the word list, my ears perk up and I have to write down whatever that particular list is. I'm just seeing here behind my picture, future Olympian sets new records, sports news. Okay, so this is listening to a news story. So if I knew that this was the idea behind the story, I know that it's an athlete. I know that it's an amateur competition. I know that the person broke records. I know that the person has not been to the Olympics yet because it says future Olympian. So I'm using all of this information to put together a story for the questions that I anticipate are coming. Oops. When you are listening to a panel discussion, it's often 3 people that are talking. And please do not get caught up with what's going on in the background. The questions will never ask you, what color was the man's tie? Or, what was the lady holding in her hand? What color, what was the time on the clock on the wall? Or what color was the kettle on the stove? None of those questions will be asked. So really, you shouldn't be looking at the screen when this activity is happening. You should be looking down at your page. So I would have my page, and I would do this, and this, and this. Okay. So I'd make a chart that looks like this. And then here, I would put tie, guy with the tie. In the middle, I might put blonde. And over here, I might put glasses. Just something to remind me of who it is that said what. And if the gentleman speaks first, well, I'll put his information here. If the blonde lady speaks second, I'm not going to put her information here. I'm going to put it lower. if the lady with the glasses speaks, then I'm going to put her here. And then if the blonde lady speaks again, I'll put her here. And then if the guy with the tie, he speaks, I'll put him here. So not only do we have who said what, but we know the order in which it was said. So it's a great chart to review, to look back on when the question says, how did, what was the response to the suggestion of having half days on a Friday? Very common for companies in the summertime to let their staff go at noon on Fridays. So what was the comment? So okay, well, here was the comment about should we leave early on Fridays, and here are the responses to that comment. So you have the person and you have the order. So make sure that you're using the pen and paper that they give you. When you sit down, because they know that they gave you blank paper, start writing a cheat sheet. I wrote things like who, where, what, why, when, just to remind me. If I totally fall apart and I can't remember what I'm going to say, talk about who, where, what, why, when, because that always makes for an interesting story. I wrote perfect tense to remind myself to show off that I knew how to use the perfect tense. I had been living in Scarborough until I got a job in Mississauga. Or the future perfect tense. By 2029, I will have been working at wherever, company X, for 7 years. So I will have been. By this date, I will have been. Future perfect. It's a very advanced tense. That's what they're listening for. That's where you score the amazing points, is understanding what is a more complicated structure, practicing the structure, and then using it to show that you know how to use it. And they're like, okay, this person, they got it going on. We know what's happening. In terms of viewpoints, there often are, there's not a right or wrong answer. There might be 2 or 3 people with a different opinion. So I think the show that I recommended this morning was a CBC show called At Issue. The host is Rosemary Barton, and it's a political commentary show. And she poses a question, and she has 3 or 4 guests, and they all have different viewpoints. They're all very highly educated political journalists, and they talk about the situation that Rosemary Barton has brought up. So listening to viewpoints is interesting because the questions will talk about, was it an opinion? Was it a fact? How did this person believe? Why did this person believe that there was such an impact based on environment? Whatever the news story happens to be. So what you could do is watch a show like At Issue or some other show where there's a host and 3 guests, and just get used to taking notes. Get used to listening to the conversation and trying to figure out what people's messages are, and that will make you more comfortable with handling a task where you're answering about different people's viewpoints. In terms of reading, you can scan a piece of information, or scan a bit of writing. Let's say it's a flyer, and you want to look quickly. You see that it's a flyer for a garage sale. The information that you want is where, when, where and when, right? I was going to say where, when, and what time, but that's when. Where and when. So you can easily, you don't have to read, we have books and blankets and baby toys and da-da-da. You're just scanning quickly for Saturday the 15th, 9 a.m. Oh, and the address. That's what I was looking for, the location. So when, where, and time. So when you're reading for CELPIP, you're not necessarily reading for understanding. You're not reading for meaning as much as you are reading just to find the damn answer. So if you don't know what you're reading for, you try to memorize the whole thing, and that's impossible. So step 1 should be, don't read the text, read the question. But don't look at the possible answers. Because if you look at the possible answers, your brain is going to be programmed for some of those answers, and those answers aren't all right. Some of them are wrong. So my recommendation, the pro tip is read the question, find the answer in the text by scanning quickly for where it might be. Once you know the answer, go back and match it to one of the options. Don't look at the options until you already know. Don't look at the options until you can expect one of the options to be what you already know. Now, if you go to the options and what you thought it was isn't there, that's surprising. You might be caught off guard a little bit, but you will then see and hopefully recognize the correct answer. But if you just use that recognition trick, show me all of the answers and I'll recognize the one that's true or accurate. That's not a very good strategy because test writers are very good at playing games with your brain to make an answer seem really, really plausible and completely wrong. But it really does sound good. And as a result, they trick their students. So don't be biased by their suggestions. Decide what the answer is on your own before you look at their suggestions. And then 99% of the time, when you look at their suggestions, you'll already be able to match it to the answer that you already came up with. And there's your answer, and you don't even have to look at the options. Facts and opinions, I think that should be fairly easy for people at this level. Timed reading, much like timed speaking, much like if you are training for CELPIP, get out your stopwatch. And once you know the pattern, once you know the expectations, then you can start timing yourself for speed. Don't start by timing yourself because you'll get intimidated and potentially fall apart. Quality before speed. Get the order of operations down. Practice what it is that you want to practice. Then once you have the order, the pattern, then you can start increasing your speed, get out your stopwatch, and you can start doing timed trials. But this is very much like training for an athletic event. Reading a diagram or a brochure or a flyer might look something like this. And the questions might say something like, Bob and Sue are first-time gardeners, and they're really nervous about killing the plants that they have. Out of these two options, what would be a more appropriate choice? Now, it's not going to be quite that easy, but for purposes of my example, obviously you would see that the difficulty level is harder with tomatoes than it is for carrots, which are easy. So the answer must be, if they're first-time gardeners, go with the thing that's easy. If it says they are experienced gardeners, then easy would not be the right answer. And what they're testing there is, do you know what experienced means? Because if you know what experienced means, you would know that they don't need something that's easy. So that's how they're putting things together. They're paraphrasing and they're asking for suggestions. Now, in this particular flyer, I think there are 6 plants. There's watermelons, beans, peas, and I don't know, cucumbers or something. So there's all these different seasons and difficulties, and do they need dry soil or wet soil, and do they work in the shade, and do they work in the sunshine? And using the information from the flyer, you can look at the questions and grab the information, data mine the information from the flyer and use that to answer the questions. If you don't yet know what a thesaurus is, it's not a dinosaur, although it kind of sounds like one. It is a book like a dictionary, but instead of giving you the definition of words, it gives you words that are very similar in meaning. So if you find that you're always using the word nice, I don't like using the word nice, I always use the word nice, then look up the word nice in a thesaurus, and you're going to see things like cool, amazing, stupendous, superb. That's all I got right now, but that's the idea. You can see here the examples: guide, leader, conductor, genius, guru, mentor, pilot, all these options so that you don't have to repeat yourself. So if you want to boost your vocabulary, a thesaurus is a great way to do it. Paraphrasing is how they test your knowledge of vocabulary. So if in the reading it says the emperor penguin is a social animal, then the question might say something about they're solitary. Well, no. If they're social, how could they be solitary? Solitary means solo, and social means with other people. So they paraphrase things. They might say, instead of in its nesting and foraging behavior, they might say in its habitation and hunting behavior. Kind of the same thing. Instead of saying diving and resurfacing, how about swimming and coming up? They coordinate their swimming and their ascent to the surface in order to hunt. They may be active day or night. Maybe the question will say diurnal for day or nocturnal for night. The species disperses into the ocean from January to March. Maybe the answer, or the question, sorry, will say something like, how could you paraphrase? They leave the land and swim for the first 3 months of the year. Right? It's exactly the same thing, only worded differently. So that's how they test your vocabulary. They'll give you one method of explanation in the question and a different method of explanation in the text, and they'll expect you to know that if the text says global warming and the question says climate change, you know those two things link together. Best advice my sister ever gave me was write how you speak. So that all my siblings are older than me, so I got the benefit of being able to ask them, how do I do this school assignment? Because I don't know what I'm doing. And they all knew because they had done them before. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying to my sister, I don't know what to write. Like writer's block. It's called writer's block. If you're not sure of what that, you go to Google, type in writer's block. Famous writers have this. They sit down at the typewriter and nothing comes. So she said to me, imagine I'm on the other side of the table, or imagine one of your friends, or imagine mom is on the other side of the table. What would you say? Never mind writing it, just what words would come out of your mouth. And then, as those ideas start to come out about what I would say, instead of saying them, I said them through my pen. Write how you speak. If you're stuck and you don't know what to do, start writing how you speak. I think there's a slide on this earlier, but it's come into my mind now, so I'll say it. Don't edit your work while you're writing it. Get the task finished first. If the task is a 26-minute task on writing your opinion between A and B, before you touch the keyboard, 5 minutes of planning. What are your ideas? What order am I going to put them in? What are the reasons for my ideas? Okay, 4 or 5 minutes, plenty of time. Now you've got 15 minutes to write. Don't spend time editing. Don't spend time rereading, unless it's like super quick. Don't spend time erasing and thinking about better words. This is now not the time for that. Now is the time just to finish the damn task. So you've done your 5 minutes of prep. You know what things you're going to talk about. You've got reasons for your ideas. You spend 15 minutes writing, and you realize at the end of your writing, I don't really like this. At least it's done. Now you have 5 minutes to edit. So I say to students, write quickly, edit slowly. Get the job done. Just rush through the job, because you can't edit a blank page. If you're too afraid to write because you don't want to make a mistake or look foolish or have a bad idea, you'll end up not finishing the task, and that's worse than writing garbage. So write garbage because you can edit garbage. You can't edit nothing. 5 minutes of planning, 15 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of editing, 25 minutes. The tasks are usually 23 to 26, 27. So you're going to have to break that down. But please, if you finish writing and there's 5 minutes left on the clock, don't hit the next button. Stay and sit back and reread and reread and reread and reread until all of those 5 minutes have been used up, and you've used every last second to look for every 4-letter word that you might have been able to make a better word, like a 5-letter word. Instead of good, it's great, perfect, extra point, right? We're looking for all these little polishing things. Don't waste the time. Even if you think you're done, sit there and read it again and read it again and read it again. You paid big money and you're only there for a few hours. Spend the 60 seconds that you have left over. Read it again. Read it again. Read it again. Something might catch your eye. You're like, oh, Oh, I could use that word. Da, 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 da. Extra points. Every point matters. And there it is there. You can't edit a blank page. Good. So generate your ideas. Tell me why those are your ideas. Put 1, 2, 3 beside them in the order. Maybe the first thing that you wrote down is going to end up being idea number 3. All right, so just write your ideas down, then put them in the order that you want to order them in. Create a greeting or an introduction. Hello, thank you very much for asking for my opinion on whether or not we should have a Niagara Falls conference or a Jamaican conference. I work in the quality assurance department in the Hamilton office, and I think it would be spectacular if we did A, B, C, D, E. And if you would like to chat further about this, I'm available via email, and thank you very much for considering my opinion. Right? It's a pattern. It's not a formula. It's not a template. It's just the pattern that anybody would use if they're writing an email to a friend. You would, hi, how are you? Or maybe not to a friend, but let's say I'm writing an email to Air Canada. Hello, dear Air Canada. My name is Rod Chalmers. I was on your flight 561 from Vancouver to Toronto last Wednesday at 2 p.m. We landed in Toronto at 8 p.m. and I picked up my baggage at 8:45 from carousel number 6. However, upon receiving my baggage, I realized that, and whatever the broken or damaged, whatever. So you've given them a greeting. You've given them the relationship of how they should know me because I'm a customer, and here's when I was a customer, and here's when I landed, and da-da-da-da-da. And what I would like is some sort of compensation for the damage that was caused to my bag. That's your end goal. Please feel free to contact me for any further information. Thank you for listening. Thank you for reading. There's your closing. So it's always the same kind of thing. If I suppose I bought a pair of jeans, wrong size. I don't know, they were mailed to me. I'm just totally making this up, right? But, dear Mall Jean Company, thank you very much for shipping the jeans that I ordered online. I ordered them last Wednesday, and it was the Blue Notes pair of 33 by 34s. So there's the greeting, there's the relationship. Here's how you know me. I'm a customer. You ship these things to me. End goal. Unfortunately, they're not the right size. I believe an error was made. Would you mind please contacting me so that we can resolve this issue? Here's my telephone number, my email address. Looking forward to hearing from you. Done. It's always the same. Hi, this is who I am. This is how you know me. This is what I want. This is how to contact me. Goodbye. Always the same. Giving advice when your speaking task is super easy. You've got a friend coming to Toronto. They're going to be traveling with their spouse and 11-year-old child. Suggest to them where they should go, when they should come, what they should do, so on and so forth. Very easy. Obviously, if they're bringing a 10-year-old child, you would not recommend things like go to a winery or a casino. But if it was your grandparents that were coming, maybe a winery would be a lovely idea. So the examiners are thinking, are you paying attention to the fact that there's a 10-year-old in this group, and a winery probably would not be a great idea? Tell me about a time. Tell me about a story. Talk about an experience. Tell me when you lost something. Tell me when you got mad. Tell me when you had to teach something to somebody else. Tell me about a time when you lost something. Tell me about a time that you regret a behavior that you, whatever. So it's just a story. And we want to start with something a little bit more compelling than, I will describe a time when I got so mad I still regret. Oh my God, shoot me now. You've just stolen every word out of the picture, or out of the question. Make it suspenseful. Describe a time I got so mad I regretted my own behavior. I would start, it was the summer of 2019. All of a sudden, well, what happened? Why is this a special summer? It creates a bit of suspense. Or, I ended up in a coma. All of a sudden, with one sentence, the person's like, how long were you in a coma? How bad was it? Was it a car accident? Was it self-inflicted? Did somebody do it to you? Are you going to be okay? Do you still have your memory? Like a million questions just from starting a story. Let me tell you a story. I ended up in a coma. Well, because you've jumped ahead. Like now you need to fill in the backstory. It makes it kind of interesting. So lots of ways that we can make our stories a little bit more exciting. In terms of describing a scene and making predictions, tasks 3 and 4, do not make the mistake of predicting what will happen in task 3, and do not make the mistake of describing the scene in task 4. Task 3 is describe, task 4 is predict. Don't mix those two things up. You will not have time to talk about everything in the picture. I could talk about this picture for 2 hours. You've got 60 seconds. So you're going to have to choose the most important things. Ultimately, you want colors, shapes, and actions. What are people doing? What's happening? I would focus on, obviously, the truck that went into the river. I would focus on the crane, the ambulance, the fire truck, probably this guy down here who's injured, maybe the firefighter taking the gas out, maybe the journalist taking a picture. I don't have time to talk about, I don't know even who this guy is over here, groundskeeper or something. The kids on the other side of the tunnel, the bridge, the dog. There's no time. There's no, this guy in the green, I guess that's a police officer, right? And the background and the hills in the back, there's no time. No, you're just gonna have to find. So I would talk about the cherry red fire truck, or the van style ambulance with the blue lights on top, or the lime green and white police car. It's not just green and white, it's lime green and white. It's not just a red fire truck, it's a cherry red fire truck. It's a sky blue truck that went into the river. Direction, like black and yellow diagonal lines on the hook of the crane. So you're showing the examiner, you know the word diagonal. Black and yellow diagonal lines. That's very impressive for the examiner. When we are talking about persuading or convince the listener, should I choose A or should I choose B? Again, don't steal any words from the question. I would not say here, I prefer option 2 because it's a comfortable desk. I would say, I prefer the wooden desk because it looks like it would fit the decor in our house better. And it's also a little bit less expensive by $50. And that's important because, this is very, right, don't just give your idea, give why. It's $50 cheaper. Why is that important? Because we could then afford a coffee maker for the kitchen, or a chair for the desk, or what else could you put on a desk or do on a desk? You could spend $50 on a bigger monitor, for example. Instead of saying it's a strong desk, I could say it's extremely well built. I could say it's sturdy. I could say it's not flimsy. I could say it is very stable. Instead of saying it has 1-year insurance, I would say it has a 12-month guarantee. You could say a 52-week guarantee, but that's a little bit silly, but it's grammatically correct and factually accurate. So 1-year insurance, very similar to a 12-month guarantee. So you can use the words if you paraphrase them. I would not say that the other desk is wide, the way they have said. I would say my choice is narrower. I know, family, that you really like the glass desk, but my choice is narrower, and I think it will fit into the space that we have better. So you can use the ideas here, but just don't steal the language that's right out of the question. And if you do, just try to paraphrase it. You know, if for whatever reason, if I accidentally said, oh, and the desk that I want has a 1-year insurance, I mean like a 12-month guarantee, fine, correct yourself. Let the examiner know. I know how to correct this. I know how to paraphrase this. This is a little bit difficult, dealing with a difficult situation. Your best friend wants to come and visit you for 2 months, July and August in Toronto, and your partner really, really doesn't like this person. So you either have to A, tell your friend why they can't stay with you, or B, tell your partner why they should be able to stay with you. Difficult situation. No right or wrong answer. Just your opinion and empathy and kindness and gentleness and words that aren't harsh. In terms of giving your opinion, these will never be geopolitical, religious related questions. They're going to be very general, like if the question that I posed to my students earlier today, if people are using drugs like fentanyl and heroin and crack, and it's making a mess of the city, and they're strung out downtown, and our tourists are judging us, these people are obviously committing a crime. We have not legalized these drugs in Canada. Should we throw them in jail because they're criminals, or should we put them into a rehab clinic because it's a medical issue? No right or wrong answer, really. Kind of depends on your perspective. Then, of course, I asked my class, well, if you think that it's a good idea to send them to a rehab facility, should it be mandatory or voluntary? And that opened up another discussion about, do we force them to do this? I don't. So lots of debatable questions that have no right or wrong answer. So please don't worry about giving a silly answer or a wrong answer. Nobody is judging your answer. They are judging how well you express yourself. How did you deliver your opinion? Were you convincing? That's all. The last one is describing an unusual, usually not situation, but an unusual picture. And it will usually say something like, you're shopping and you're in an art store and you see a very unusual picture. Call your partner, describe the picture, and ask them if you can buy it. So there's three things. Not, hey mom, it said call your partner. Not, well, I don't know how you would avoid describing the picture, but don't just describe the size, but get into the detail of what the image looks like. And don't forget to ask if you can buy it, because the question said, ask them if you can buy it. So make sure that's the last thing you do as part of your answer. Read the questions carefully and answer every part. It's a major problem that people have. They read the question and they do one part of it and not the other part. You describe the picture beautifully and then you forget to ask if you can buy it. It says right in the question, ask if you can buy it. So slow down just a little bit, understand the question rather than just looking at it sort of as sort of an academic thing. Think about it more of a conversational thing. And then, of course, here you would say, oh my God, whatever your partner's name is, it might even be better to call them honey or some sort of lovey name, to indicate to the examiner that you know that this is your partner. And then you could describe this really crazy picture. And on the left, I see this light bulb that's been broken at the base, and here's what's coming out of it, and here are the colors. And on the right, there's the metal part, and there's land coming out, and there's a waterfall, and da-da-da. And it looks really great, and I think it would look amazing above our fireplace. Can I buy it? Zip it, silence. That's your last sentence. The question said, ask if you can buy it. Ask if you can buy it and shut up. That's your perfect closing. Try not to ever talk through the ending of an answer. So if you're timing yourself on a 60-second answer, finish in 55 seconds. It is far less problematic to have some silence at the end than it is to talk through the finish. Talking through the finish they don't like. It indicates that you didn't plan your speaking very well. So plan your final sentence, wait for the last 5 seconds to roll around, drop in your sentence, zip it, and let the time run out. If you're an advanced English speaker, spice it up a little. These are all these techniques that you can use to make your writing sound a little bit more fun. Maybe, might, could, perhaps, should, ought to. Prepositions of place, beside, through, over, under, above, below, against, between, along. Similes and metaphors where we where we compare things to other things. An analogy, also a method of comparison. Personification, where we take something that is not a person and give it person-like qualities. So when we say the wind howled through the rigging of the boat, or the wind howled through the forest, wind doesn't howl. Wind doesn't have a voice. Wind is not a wolf, but it sounds like a wolf. So we give it these personal qualities like it's a living thing. The wind howled through the rigging. The house was screaming for paint, right? Uh, the 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 ground was parched and dying for water. Personification, things that we would say about a person. And idioms, things that don't translate very well at all. Break a leg means do well, same as knock 'em dead. Do well, do a good job. It's a piece of cake. It's easy. Time to hit the hay. I'm going to bed now. Kill two birds with one stone. Make a job as efficient as possible. So these are expressions that you might know. And if you do, don't be afraid to use them. In fact, I encourage you to use them in the test because it shows an advanced level of English. Wow, this person knows phrases that don't even translate properly. A phrase that has a meaning that doesn't really, like when you tell somebody to break a leg, you're really not telling them to go break their leg. Okay, so by using it, you're indicating to the examiner, hey, I have this extra knowledge. So here's our special. Here's we were chatting. We had our CELPIP rep here at Lambton. We were having our pre-webinar meeting last week, and we said, well, we really want to be able to provide some sort of value to the students. As I said, I got into this field because I felt that international students were being taken advantage of. So obviously, when people have some sort of knowledge and it's their livelihood, people have to eat, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be a ridiculously overly expensive kind of program. So what I've done here is said, if we can get 10 students together, or even 8, we can run this program, and I'll give you the dates on the next slide. $10 per class, 10 classes, maximum 10 students, and each class will be video recorded either by me or I will offer for you to record it on your side, so that you have not just a video of the material, but a video of our actual session, so that if I said something or one of your colleagues said something that you thought was a neat idea, you can go back. You're not watching a generic video, you're watching the very class that you are in. Minimum 60 minutes per class. I often go overboard, as you could probably tell from our webinar tonight. I do give homework, so you'll have an opportunity to practice, and there are an additional 2 free practice tests in addition to the 10 classes. And a lot of people don't review writing because it's very time consuming. By all means, I'll give you writing coaching and suggest that you send me your writing so that I can give you one-on-one feedback with regard to your written answers. So normally $200 a student. Let's make it half price. $100, 10 classes, every question covered, materials that you need, instant feedback, $100. Here's the proposed schedule. If we do Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we can have 5 classes. We'll take a little break, and then to catch up, people that, life gets busy and we don't want to rush through the whole thing. We give people an opportunity to breathe. So we'll do 5 classes. We'll have a little breather for a weekend and plus a couple of days. And then we'll do another 5, and then we'll do our practice tests. The other option is if you have Saturdays available, we can do Saturday mornings from 10 till 12. We'll do 5 of those, which is 10 hours, and then we'll do 2 days of practice tests. If this is something that you're interested in, you can send an email transfer or send me an email just if you have questions before you feel comfortable to send funds over. Of course, I will indicate that your funds have been received. If for whatever reason we only have 3 people sign up and we're not able to run it, then of course 100% refund. There's no withholding any fees for like administrative fees or anything. You get everything back. It's just to be able to provide a high value, low cost option to feel more confident with the test from somebody who was born here and has taken the test themselves and has gone through the entire education system in Ontario. So there aren't too many people who have the kind of background that I've got to give you the skills that you need to do well. So it's much cheaper than taking the test twice. train for it, and take it once. And I think, there we go. So that is back to slide 1, which is also the last slide. My information, my email, slightly different email address. They both go to the same place. So you're welcome to email. Telephone, I don't often answer the phone, but WhatsApp is great. As you know, there are far too many scam calls. I'm tired of being told that the police are coming to carry me off to jail because I didn't pay my taxes or something. And of course, you can ask Lambton questions as well because we're in contact regularly. So if you have questions, they'll be able to get those questions to me and we can get them back to you that way as well. So lots of options. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate those of you who have stuck it out for this extended period, but we did get a lot of good information in, and I think we have a few more questions.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, $100 is great. What can we get cheaper than $10 an hour?
Yeah.
It's just amazing. So if you're interested, you can find Rod's information in the chat. You can let us know as well. And let's get started with the questions. We have one here. I'm working as a healthcare support worker in Sarnia from January. How long do I need to wait for qualify for the REDI program?
I don't think there's any time frame that you need to wait. You just need a job offer. That's what's amazing about. I mean, I understand it's not a very exciting program, but what's amazing about it is that you really just have to have a job offer. If you're willing to go to a community that really wants you, then where's the problem? You want them, they want you. You're not a criminal. You're healthy. You've got a good background. You've got some resettlement fees or resettlement funds rather in your account to be able to go up there and pay for first and last month's rent and get a new life started. So super easy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next one is kind of, it has like 2 or 3 questions here. I have an OIMP International Student Stream profile, and I have completed my job experience in Thunder Bay. That's interesting. Will my profile be selected in REDI automatically, or do I, in that case, I got an, I'm sorry, only, I'm sorry, automatically, or only in case if I got an invitation in the OIMP draws? So that's the first part. And the second part, and we have this question as well later on. They want to know about the scoring system for the REDI program. Is there like a competition like in the other scoring programs, or how does it work?
Okay, where do I start? Remind me of that very first question again, because I had an answer in my head.
Oh yeah, sorry. It is this person has international student stream profile.
Oh, right.
Probably
Yes.
already
So,
created and
yeah,
experience in Thunder Bay.
they're already in OINP. So if you're already in, how do I put this? You would have to apply for OINP job offer stream. So once you have a job offer from a Thunder Bay employer that is affiliated with this REDI program, so if you know people in Thunder Bay, if you're in Thunder Bay, and if they are willing to hire you, then you would ask them to either get affiliated if they're not already affiliated with the REDI program, or if they are already, they will know about their employer portal. And then you would just get a job offer from them because they know you already, and you would apply with that. I just wanted to, OINP job offer. Hang on one second. I'm just going to do a quick little check for something.
Just want to remind you that you will get the recording along with the slides, so no worries. You will get all the information.
Let's see here. The employer job offer stream, part of OINP, is not directly tied to Express Entry. So this is an unlinked program. So that means if you have an Express Entry profile, you will not be automatically selected for OINP job offer stream. So some provincial programs are linked. That means if you have an express entry profile and you have indicated that you are willing to go to one of the other provinces, then any of their linked programs will scrape the express entry pool for you. If it is an unlinked program, then you have to go to the province directly and give them an expression of interest. So for OINP job offer, it's an unlinked program. So you'll have to set up an Ontario profile as well as an express entry profile. And then there was another question.
Yeah, it's about the scoring part. The scoring system.
Scores? Technically, yes, because it's OINP job offer, but the score for REDI will be much lower. So don't panic. I know a lot of people don't like the job offer or the OINP streams because you're just in another pool again, waiting to be drawn with a score. It's very frustrating. But for REDI, because it's a brand new program and it is targeted specifically to high demand jobs, the score is not going to be high.
And I think there hasn't been any draw so far, right? So we're still waiting.
That's correct. Brand new program.
Good. Okay, another question for REDI. I finished business management. From my whole Canadian work experience is in daycare as ECE assistant. He or she's currently 41 years old. Will I still be eligible, I guess, for the REDI?
Sure. Absolutely. Don't let age be your limiting factor. If you're educated and you have experience, that can work to your advantage. So when people talk about age, they really are referring only to the federal express entry. But there's lots of other programs that age is not a big factor. If it's a factor,
yeah, that's kind of the advantage of OINP programs.
Exactly. Or any provincial program for that matter. Most people only know express entry. So they apply all of their knowledge of express entry to all of the provincial programs, and you can't transfer one program's knowledge to another. They're all tweaked a little bit differently.
Good. Okay, another question here. Some of the categories are big. For example, cybersecurity specialist. How do we match if, for example, with another cybersecurity role, still rely on the description of the duties?
Yes. So first of all, you want to go to Google and type in NOC 2021. The National Occupation Codes, NOC, National Occupation Codes, changed in 2021 and in 2016. So if you are looking at the 2016 version, I believe it was a 4-digit code. Now it's a 5-digit code. So make sure that you're using a 5-digit code. Once you know, once you've been to the website to determine, you can just type in, how do I figure out my NOC code? Cybersecurity. Then you're going to go to the job bank and you're going to type in the NOC code, and it's going to give you a list of main duties. And then at the bottom of that page, it's going to say, this does not include cybersecurity specialists for A, B, C, whatever. So that's how you know that there's other categories. So you would look at the main page and you would look at all of the main duties, and you would see, let's say there's a list of 14 things that you would do as the main duties, and you check off 7 of the things out of 14 that you do. Then you go to one of the alternative cybersecurity options and you look at that code and you go, oh, out of 14, I do 10 of these things, but I only do 7 of the other one. So even though my boss calls me this, my job actually aligns better with this because I do more of those main duties. So what they call you is irrelevant. What you do is what's important. So match your main duties to the main duties in the description, and whichever one aligns more closely to the activities that you do on a daily basis, that's your NOC.
Great. Yeah, that's a great advice. And we do have, I think I said that already today, we have a great webinar about the tier and NOC. Yeah, so go to our website, to our YouTube channel, and you will find all that information, and you can try to understand better. And still, sometimes it's very difficult to actually match your NOC So we'll probably book a
just
consultation.
yeah, do the best you can, and
Mhm.
very rarely somebody fits into two knocks at the same time. That can happen.
Yeah.
The goal is just to be as honest and transparent as possible, so that you can honestly tell the government, here's what I can provide to you if you choose me. And if they like that, then they'll pick you. So just be honest.
Good. Next question here. If we secure a banking advisor position in one of the participating communities for the REDI, is it necessary for the employer to complete employer form?
Yes. The employer form will be, as far as I understand, REDI. They will have to do their regular employer portal, which is, I think, $230. They'll ask some financial questions. They'll make sure that the business is big enough. They'll make sure that they are already employing some Canadians and permanent residents. They'll make sure that they're not behind on their taxes. They'll make sure that they haven't broken any rules of any other government programs. Then you will apply with your job offer that matches that company name, which is already in the government system from their employer portal, and that's how they link the two of you together.
Perfect. This question is pretty easy.
Mhm.
Our PTWP condition number 2 says that it's prohibited to participate in any educational institution or academic or training courses. Is it allowed to study French?
My knee-jerk reaction is to say yes, of course. I think the concern is that they don't want you to take a formal education course that's over 6 months, because at the 6-month mark, all of a sudden you need a study permit. I'm going to see if I can get a better answer, like an official answer to you, but I would bet my last $5 that studying French would be absolutely fine, especially because it's a cultural program that the government is trying to promote. They're not going to stop you from doing that. This doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. It's exactly
Yeah,
what they're looking
absolutely.
for right now. Yeah.
It's like studying English if you
Right.
want to get a
Right.
higher score, right?
Right, exactly.
So yeah, it won't be any problem, just for confirming. And something else related to French here. Any advice for French language test on all skills, listening, reading, writing, and speaking, different from English?
I have not seen the French tests. There's one called TCF, and the other one, I believe it's called TEF. The concept of language tests are always the same. It'll be all 4 components, and it will be a various number of scenarios that you'll have to prove your skills in. So the concept of any language test is going to be about the same. I don't know whether or not you speak to a human or if you speak to a computer. I do know a couple of people who have done the test recently, so I should check with them. I would really like to improve my own French, because when I was 13, I could carry on a simple conversation. And as I was saying to you this morning, I have a recording of me speaking French that I can now not understand, because if you don't use it, it's gone, right? I was 13 years old, and I was okay. But and now if I listen to French TV or French radio, you can feel it kind of start to click a little while, but it would take me a long time to get back. So I don't know if I would do very well on a French test, but the bottom line is all language tests are roughly the same. So there are prep courses. I bet you could find free French language speaking groups, either online or in your community, because it's so popular right now. They might be in churches. Doesn't mean that you have to be a member of the church. Churches just often offer up their spaces for volunteer groups like that, or like free groups like that. So yeah, look for free courses. Look for courses at local high schools. Your local Board of Education might have deals as well. And you were saying that Lambton has access to some software and tools as well. So don't be afraid of the French test.
Yeah, we do have as well webinars about French, where we give some advices. I recommend you to look for them as well. Unfortunately, if we're not permanent residents, we cannot take actually a free course, but we can go to the library, which is great. And there are resources for free that we can get. So there are programs that we do not qualify because we're not PR.
Right, it's not like a link program. No, but you would go to like just a community group, right? Like you say,
Yeah.
a library or a church, or there might be a French association, or,
Yes.
you know, do a little bit of digging.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many things are available in Canada if you just do a little bit of looking. The government doesn't often put these things under your nose, but they're
Mhm.
there in pretty plain sight. If you make yourself a coffee and sit down and start banging out some ideas and start digging around the internet, look for stuff, you're going to find stuff. It's incredible. The amount of funding that is available for minorities and women and people that want to start businesses. There's funding,
Mhm.
there's grants, there's scholarships. People don't know about them because they don't look. And the
Yeah,
government isn't going
that's
to
true.
say, we have free money available, because they don't really want to give it to you. But it's there if you ask for it. So you
Yeah,
just have to
that's
dig it up.
true. There are applications like Eventbrite, so go look for it. They do have events in French. Some are very, very cheap, like
Uh, event
10 bucks, 15.
Eventbrite. Yes,
Yeah.
Eventbrite. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's really good one. So go to our webinars. You will find information there as well in regarding to French. Okay, let's try to finish. We do have more questions here.
Okay.
Can I put in an EOI without a job offer?
Not if the program requires a job offer for you to be invited. So if it doesn't require one, if the EOI is just, are you interested in our province, then sure. But if the requirement for that particular program requires a job offer, then there's no point until you actually have a job offer. And if you did and you got invited, you would have to turn the invitation down. So if you took your chances, went into the expression of interest, then got your job offer and got invited, okay. But if you get invited before you get your job offer, not okay. And you have to deny or turn down the invitation.
Good. Another question here. Let's see if I got it right. I'm working as a SAP or SAP production data technician, technical coordinator from Mondelez International Scarborough. There is a provincial program I could apply for. I have been in the position for 6 months. That's a very wide and difficult question. I think we'll probably need more information.
Generally speaking, 6 months is not enough. We need at least 1 year of experience. There are some programs, I think, as part of the OINP, where you only need 9 months of experience, which is pretty cool. Um, Depending on where you graduate from, in which province, some provinces are only 6 months. So again, doing research is really important. But in terms of being in Scarborough and only 6 months, wait until at least 9 to see if you fit into an OINP. And at 12, you'll fit into the Canadian Experience class if your work has been full time.
Perfect. And one more question here. My international student stream profile expires in September. Does each will still considered in REDI program and my NOC is 22100? Is it will consider in demand?
22100. What is that? What is that job? Do we know?
No.
22100.
Let's see.
Let's see here. 22100. Oh, chemical technologists and technicians. I don't know that field very well. If that falls under science, which would be a STEM category, then great.
Mhm.
It's the second number in a NOT code is the tier code. So this would be a tier 2 because it's 22100. And we need a 0, 1, 2, or 3 to get into express entry. So that's good. Um, I can't say very confidently that it's a high demand job, but I don't know the field well enough to say that you should listen to my advice on that. So I would contact every chemical association in Canada, importers, manufacturers, get to know the industry, get their trade magazines, go to the library and say, I'm a chemical technologist. I want to know more about the chemical technology field in Canada. Are there any publications, or they call them periodicals? That means like a monthly publication or a quarterly publication from the Canadian Association of Chemical Technologists, right? And it's in that kind of publication that you would see all the companies and the trainings that are available and the seminars and the webinars and the conferences, and that's how you get into the industry. Start meeting people who are in the industry. You don't have to be in high demand if there's a labor market impact assessment and the company says there's a high demand. It just has to be assessed individually. These categories, they don't have to assess because we already know we have a shortage in healthcare. So we don't need to
Yeah.
reassess that. But for chemical technologists, we might have to assess that on an individual basis. Or the technologist could learn French. Just saying.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Look at this.
Here,
Look at this recurring theme.
yeah, here's just saying that it's gonna expire in September.
Okay.
So if it will be still considered for the REDI program, I think as
Sure.
long as yeah.
Renew it in August. Just as soon as it's ready to expire, re-up, get another year. Just get back in the pool. Same as Express Entry. As soon as your profile expires or a day before it expires, get ready and be prepared to you can't have two, but as soon as one is gone, fire up the other one.
Can they do it as well with international student stream? Because international student stream, I believe you can apply only within 2 years after graduation.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, if you're expiring and you're also no longer eligible, then obviously that's not going to count. But people are eligible for Express Entry, for example, say for 5 years or 6 years. Some people have to make 5 profiles before they're invited. They just last a year.
Okay, we have 2 more questions here.
Sure.
I don't know if I don't understand this one. Probably you do.
I'll try.
Does an not to profile company okay for REDI?
A what company?
Not to.
Oh, NOC, knock 2, they're saying? Like tier 2?
NOT. No, no, no.
Oh.
Not /to profile profit, sorry, company okay for REDI.
Are we saying
to.
not for profit?
Probably like ONGs. I really don't. I'm not sure about this question. To profit company. No, I don't know.
Even when I Google it, it's nothing's. I'm not. Maybe they could reword the question for you. I'd be happy
All right,
to.
if you're still here,
I'd be happy to field it.
Non-profit.
Yeah, that's what I thought they said. Nonprofit. I can't see why not. What reason would the government have to say you're not included in this? If it's an in-demand job that a legally operating nonprofit, registered nonprofit organization has, I can't see any reason why they would not be included. I'm not going to say 100% because I haven't done research, so don't take this as official legal advice. But my knee-jerk reaction is I don't see why that would be an exclusionary factor, being nonprofit. If you're needed, you're needed.
Perfect. And we're going through the last question. This is a little bit what we just talked about. If not invited in OINP under job international student stream within 2 years from graduation, is it advisable to change to a new qualifying job or move to a rural or AIP and any other options? If we can give him or she any other options.
AIP is very saturated. Who did I see? Is it New Brunswick that is now closing their applications for AIP? It's been very, very popular, which has been very positive, but there's a limit to how many people they can take. Expiring an OINP, if you go to another province, it really won't be helpful unless you go to school there, and I don't think people really want to go through that whole headache again. You should be looking for jobs coast to coast. What are we back to? We're back to provincial programs, family, like spousal sponsorship. Learning French at 5 will give you a work permit, and learning French at CLB 7 makes you eligible for Express Entry. Taking a program and as I think this person suggested, becoming an in-demand person. That's really key. right? If you're needed, you'll be invited. That's the bottom line. Why would we not invite somebody we needed? So if you can be a needed person, like a teacher or early childhood education or healthcare or construction, that's the way to make it in, because you're providing a skill that the country is now really in need of. So it's a tough question, because people train and they want to work in their field. I would also look at smaller communities where there's less competition. Start opening your options. Look at trade magazines. Contact people on LinkedIn. Contact your a headhunter or an employment advisor. And don't be afraid to email or call HR departments and say, I'm interested. If you stay quiet at home and just bang out, you're not going to get anywhere. Get your boots on the ground. Start calling people, knock on doors, say hello, go to conferences, go to networking events, make your face known.
Yeah, that's true. And I want to remind you about our networking event happening on April 29th. If you are from our science or technology programs, we just had a question about the chemical, or I forgot already what was the field was. Chemical, yeah.
Yep.
So you should be there.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We're going to have a hiring manager. We're going to have an immigration consultant. So I think you already got the email. Register soon because spots are limited. And that's it for today. It's been more than 2.5 hours. We replied all the questions, which is great. So I want to thank you, Rod. Thanks a lot for your time and all this explanation. Thanks to our graduates for participating. And I guess I will see you shortly. And if you have any questions, you already got our email in the chat. You have Rod's email as well.
Absolutely.
So we're happy to reply to your emails, and it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you too for your patience. I know I tend to go on, but I want to give people as much info as they can. There's so much false, misleading information out there that when you have an opportunity to speak to somebody who is licensed, stay and get all the information you can.
Yeah, we tried.
As you did. Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care, and see you hopefully on April 29th. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.